Chapter 171. The first prince was embarrassed. He blushed and wished he could find a hole to hide in. He thought that Fatso and Lu Hong were country bumpkins who had not seen much of the world and were easy to bribe. But he never expected that. In the end, he was the one who humiliated himself. He felt like a clown, making a fool of himself in front of the two. I couldn't hold back my temper. Your Highness, I'm very sorry. How about we talk again? Actually, it's not difficult to bribe us. As long as you give us 20 million gold coins each, 2 red fire glaze elixirs, and 3 perfect martial arts techniques, Lu Hong and I will serve you wholeheartedly. Fatso raised the corner of his mouth and laughed. Pretend I didn't say anything. The first prince said and walked to the door, his eyes flashing with a fierce light. Fatso laughed and said, Your Highness, walk slowly. Be careful not to slip and fall. Let's see how long you can be arrogant. The first prince grumbled, kicked the door open and strode out. Your Highness, it's bad for your body to be angry. Why don't you stay for a cup of tea? Lu Hong leisurely walked to the door and said with a smile, Crack. The first prince almost fell down. He clenched his hands and said angrily without looking back, Tell Zhang Haotian to quickly refine the red fire glaze elixir. Lu Hong smiled and said, It may depend on his mood. Okay, I will think of a way to make him happy. Let's go. The first prince shouted coldly and went back home with Lin Hao and the others. Your Highness, take care. I won't see you off. Fatso waved his hand and said jokingly, By the way, young Master Lin, Zhang Laoda asked Fat Lord to tell you that he wants to thank you and your father for giving him 5 million gold coins. Bastard. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and his eyes were burning with anger. You actually want to bribe Fat Lord? Why don't you take a look at yourself in the mirror? Looking at their backs, Fatso sneered. Lu Hong said, This kind of insufferably arrogant person is indeed disgusting. But this time we'll have a grudge with the eldest prince. Fatso said disdainfully, What are you afraid of? As long as Zhang Laoda is here, we can rest easy. You're right. Lu Hong nodded. If one day the Martial Emperor Hall no longer protected them, they could just hide in the castle. Who would be able to do anything to them? Therefore there was no need to worry at all. Qin Feiyong also heard it clearly from inside the castle, but he didn't take it to heart. The next day, Ling Yunfei arrived at the Soothing Lake and brought a piece of news to Qin Feiyong. Elder Wan and the palace master both left the martial imperial palace. As for where it went, no one knew. Qin Feiyong wasn't very concerned about this matter. When he told Ling Yunfei about the pill scripture, Ling Yunfei was also extremely shocked. Obviously, he didn't expect that there was such a treasure hidden at the bottom of the lake. Next, Qin Feiyong went into seclusion. The eldest prince and Lin Hao didn't take any action. But the spies of the major forces lurked around the martial imperial palace all day long like dog skin plaster. The martial imperial palace had undoubtedly become the focus of the entire Yen city. But as the source, Qin Feiyong, seemed to have disappeared from the world. Since returning to Yen City, he had never appeared in front of anyone. Whether it was the distribution of medicinal pills or others coming to him to refine medicinal pills, it was all handled by Fatso and Lu Hong. Gradually, everyone had the misconception that the 3 words Zhang Haotian seemed to have already become a legend. After a while, a sensational piece of news spread throughout Yen City. The royal family posted a notice. The adopted daughter of Lin family's Lin Han Linyi would officially marry the eldest prince 10 days later. It was also on this day, in the castle, Qin Feiyong's finger, which was pressed on the iron-bound book, trembled violently. Immediately after, a dazzling white light rushed out from the iron-bound book, illuminating the entire castle. At the same time, Qin Feiyong's cultivation also soared rapidly. Did it succeed? He was overjoyed. He hurriedly retracted his hand and took 2 steps back. His eyes were full of expectation. And Wolf King also got up suddenly and ran to Qin Feiyong's side. He stood up like a human, and his pupils contracted tightly. The white brilliance was from the word return on the iron-bound book. The word return was condensed by true energy, but at this moment it was like a peerless divine weapon, releasing a vast divine power. Under this divine power, Qin Feiyong and Wolf King actually had the idea of kneeling down and worshipping. Deep in their hearts, a sense of insignificance arose spontaneously. After a few breaths, Qin Feiyang's cultivation stopped at the 9-star martial master. Buzz. It was also at this moment. A sudden change occurred. The white word return actually turned golden. This small space instantly turned into a golden sea. Before the man and wolf could react, yet another strange phenomenon occurred that left them dumbfounded. The golden word return actually left the iron-bound book and gradually rose into the air, emitting tens of thousands of golden rays. The man and wolf could barely open their eyes. Whoosh! The next moment, the word return turned into a stream of light and disappeared between Qin Feiyang's eyebrows. The golden light in the castle also quickly dissipated. Qin Feiyang hurriedly raised his hand and touched the space between his eyebrows. His face was full of surprise. Looking at the iron-bound book again, there was only a blank page left. Wolf King urged, "Little Qin Zi, that word has entered the space between your eyebrows. It must be in your body now. Quickly look for it." All of this was too bizarre. It was simply a fantasy story. It was very unreal. Qin Feiyang looked inside his body, but he found nothing. Suddenly, he felt that there was something strange in his palm. When he opened his hand to take a look, it immediately burst out a ray of strange light. He saw that there was a golden word return in the palms of both hands. Qin Feiyang said, "White-eyed wolf, let's have a try?" "Okay." Wolf King roared excitedly, seeming to be even happier than Qin Feiyang. However, it stretched out its paw and gently patted Qin Feiyang's right palm. Qin Feiyang's face darkened and he said angrily, "Are you tickling me?" Wolf King smiled embarrassedly and said, "I'm just afraid that the power will rebound. Just don't use your full strength." Qin Feiyang was quite speechless. "All right then, Brother Wolf will start." Wolf King gritted its teeth and slammed its paw into Qin Feiyang's palm. Bang! That moment, it clearly felt that the power that was blasting towards Qin Feiyang like a torrent was all reflected back. Immediately after, it was shaken back by that force. It really works. Wolf King was shocked. Qin Feiyang was also stunned, and then he became excited and urged, "Try again with all your strength." Wolf King said angrily, "Do you want Brother Wolf's life?" Qin Feiyang patted its head and laughed. "Be good, you won't die." All right, don't discuss Brother Wolf." Wolf King couldn't help but feel a chill, retreated a few steps, and then rushed towards Qin Feiyang with all its strength, slamming its paw into Qin Feiyang's palm. "Oh!" Wolf King immediately screamed. Its 3-meter-long body was like a meteorite, crashing into the wall behind it. Its paw was also broken. Its skin was torn open and blood was flowing. On the other hand, Qin Feiyang didn't move at all. Damn, so awesome. Qin Feiyang was stunned. It was actually a 100% rebound. Sure enough, it was a taste of his own medicine. If he fought with someone and the other party didn't know in advance, he would definitely suffer a great loss. This was a trump card. After coming back to his senses, he quickly took out a top-grade healing pill and bone-replenishing pill, ran to Wolf King, and fed it to Wolf King. Wolf King was about to scold him, but suddenly his eyes turned and he laughed. "Little Qin Zi, try and see if you can teach Brother Wolf the returning character formula?" "Teach?" Qin Feiyang was stunned, looked down at his palm and frowned. If he could teach it, he would definitely not be stingy. After all, Wolf King was loyal to him, and he naturally wouldn't forget it if there were benefits. But he didn't understand the returning character formula. How could he teach it? After pondering for a moment, Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, "I'm afraid not now. But when I figure out the meaning of the returning character formula, I will tell you as soon as possible." Wolf King couldn't help but feel a trace of disappointment in his eyes. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Don't be like this. Although I can't teach you the returning character formula, I am sure that I can help you open the first level of the Gate of Potential, the ultimate realm of martial artists." "What?" Wolf King's eyes trembled and he asked, "Are you serious? When have I ever lied to you?" Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and frowned, "But the premise is that you have to find the medicinal materials, then." He looked at his palm again. The 2 golden words were really dazzling. He didn't know if they could be hidden. This point, the word returning suddenly disappeared. "Really?" Qin Feiyang was startled, and with a thought, the word returning appeared once again. Wolf King was curious and said, "Brother Wolf, Why do you feel that the returning character formula is not some kind of divine art, but more like a divine weapon? I have the same feeling. Qin Feiyong nodded his head, seemingly deep in thought, then laughed and said, "It doesn't matter, as long as I can use the returning character formula." After hiding the word returning, he turned around and walked to the front of the iron book. He tried to flip to the second page, but he couldn't. Looks like I really have to wait until I break through to the War King realm. The returning character formula is already so powerful. This second divine art is really something to look forward to. Qin Feiyong muttered, then closed the iron book, closed the iron box and left the castle. In the living room, it was empty. Qin Feiyong shouted towards the second floor. "Fatso, Lu Hong, come down for a moment." Soon, Fatso and Yi Zichen ran downstairs. Qin Feiyong asked, "How are you finding the potential pill's medicinal ingredients?" "Ask Manager Li directly." Fatso took out the image crystal stone, and after activating it with the true qi, Manager Li's shadow quickly appeared. Manager Li said in surprise, "Yo, isn't this Brother Jiang? What kind of wind is blowing today? You actually took the initiative to look for me? Senior, can we still have fun together?" Qin Feiyong said helplessly, "Sure, tell me, why are you looking for me?" Manager Li laughed. "Have you found all the medicinal ingredients?" Qin Feiyong asked. This old man is worried about this. 33 medicinal ingredients. This old man has already found 30 of them. There are still 3 missing. They are the blood ginseng, snow crystal and 9 suns flower. However, this old man has already found out about the blood ginseng. Only the snow crystal and the 9 suns flower. Until now, there has been no news at all. Chapter 172. Snow Crystal. 9 Suns Flower. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment, looked at Manager Li's shadow and asked, "Have you searched other places?" "I've already ordered the treasure pavilions in the major cities to search with all their might. If we have more time, we should be able to find the Snow Crystal and 9 Suns Flower." "Brother Jiang, you're in such a hurry to get these herbs. What kind of pills are you trying to refine?" Manager Li looked at him in confusion. "This is a secret for now." Qin Feiyong smiled. Manager Li rolled his eyes, acting so mysteriously. He wanted to see what this brat had up his sleeves. Qin Feiyong asked, "Have you asked the royal family, the Danwang Hall, the Martial Imperial Hall, and the Lin family?" "This old man will have to go to those forces personally. But I've been too busy recently, so I haven't been there. I'm going to visit them one by one in the next few days." But some time ago, Jia He came to the treasure pavilion. Manager Li stopped abruptly, and there was a trace of anger on his old face. "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyong frowned. Manager Li said, "To be honest, the blood ginseng is in Jia He's hands." Qin Feiyong suddenly stood up, his eyes shining. "Jia He has 3 blood ginseng, but he wants 3 supreme-grade red fire-colored glass pills before he's willing to exchange with me. Although the blood ginseng is precious, it's not worth that price. He's obviously taking advantage of the situation." Manager Li was a little indignant at the end. 3 ginseng. Qin Feiyong was refreshed. Lu Hong was puzzled. Senior, Jia He is a combat emperor, and supreme-grade red fire-colored glass pills are useless to him. What does he want to do? Manager Li said. "Do you remember the person called Shui Yang?" The 3 nodded. How could they forget about that idiot? Steward Li said. "Last month, Shui Yang became his personal disciple." Qin Feiyong frowned and said, "In other words, Jia He wants a top-grade crimson fire-colored glass pill in order to fulfill Shui Yang's wish?" "That's right. The other 2 were said to be the first prince's wedding gift." Manager Li nodded. Fatso sneered, "Old Jia, are you blind? Don't you know that Shui Yang is a pig?" "Fatso, your mouth is still so annoying." Manager Li laughed and scolded. He shook his head and said, "But this is his business. It's none of our business. The most important thing now is to quickly think of a way to get the blood ginseng." Qin Feiyong returned to his seat. He lowered his head and muttered to himself, "Give him the medicinal pills." "What?" Manager Li's gaze trembled, and he said with a frown, "This old man knows that you still have superior-grade crimson fire-colored glass pills, but you can't squander them like this either. Although the superior-grade crimson fire-colored glass pill is precious, I have already taken it. There's no point in keeping it." it's better to exchange it for something valuable. However, it's definitely impossible to give him 3. At most I can give him 2. Also, you can't say that I want it. Otherwise, even if you give him 10, he may not exchange it. Qin Feiyang laughed. You don't need to remind me. This old man knows. Manager Li rolled his eyes at him and asked, Are you sure? I'm sure. Qin Feiyang nodded. All right, this old man will go and talk to him now. You can ask old man Wan and the others. Anyway, you are also in the Martial Imperial Hall. This old man won't make this trip. Manager Li said. All right. Qin Feiyang stood up and cupped his hands. I hope that senior can make a trip to the royal family and the Lin family immediately, because I really need those medicinal herbs right now. Manager Li looked at him suspiciously and said, All right, this old man will arrange it. Then, the shadow disappeared. There are still 10 days before Yi's wedding day. You have to hurry up. Qin Feiyang let out a long breath and walked out of the pavilion. A moment later, he came to the entrance of the law enforcement hall and shouted, Elder Ji, Junior Zhang Haotian requests an audience. Come up yourself. Not long later, the beautiful woman's voice came from the second floor. Qin Feiyang walked up to the second floor, looked around and saw a door that was only half closed. He walked over and saw Elder Ji sitting at the desk, writing something with his head lowered. He pushed the door open and walked in. What's the matter? Elder Ji raised his head and looked at him, then lowered his head and continued to write. Qin Feiyang stopped in front of the desk and said, Junior would like to ask, does the Martial Imperial Hall have blood ginseng, snow crystal and 9 suns flower? Let me think. Elder Ji stopped writing, thought for a while and said, Yes, 2 blood ginseng, 2 snow crystals. Why? What do you want? 2 snow crystals. Qin Feiyang's heart suddenly burned. He tried his best to control himself and not show it. He nodded and said, Yes, Elder Ji can name a price. Elder Ji smiled. I'm afraid that you can't afford the price I name. Qin Feiyang asked carefully, Elder, you won't ask for too much, right? I want you to join the Martial Imperial Hall, are you willing? Elder Ji said with a look of anticipation in his eyes. Qin Feiyang's heart sank. He really didn't expect Elder Ji to name such a price. However, these 3 medicinal herbs were very important to him. Elder Ji said again, If you agree, I'll give them to you for free. Now, Qin Feiyang began to regret. He should have let Steward Li do it. This way, Elder Ji couldn't find a reason to restrain him. How about this, on the day of the first prince's wedding, if Elder still invites me to join the Martial Imperial Hall, I will definitely not refuse. After thinking about it, Qin Feiyang could only think of this method. Really? Elder Ji immediately became spirited. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. 10 days later, he would announce his true identity in front of everyone in Yin City. That time, he wasn't sure how the Martial Imperial Hall would treat him. All right, wait here. I'll go get you the blood ginseng and snow crystals right away. Elder Ji stood up and quickly walked out of the room. In her opinion, Qin Feiyang joining the Martial Imperial Hall was already a done deal. If we add the 3 blood ginseng in Jiahei's hands, then we have 5 blood ginseng and 2 snow crystals. As long as I find 2 more 9 suns flowers, I can refine 2 potential pills. Qin Feiyang was excited just thinking about it. Suddenly, he noticed a blood-colored token on the desk. It was the blood slaughter token. Reaching out to grab it, he looked at it carefully. The beautiful woman quickly returned with 2 jade boxes in her hands. She placed them on the desk and smiled. These are what you want. I've taken a look. They are even rarer than the scarlet glass tree. I've paid such a huge price, don't go back on your words when the time comes. Do I dare? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and opened the first jade box. Rays of blood-colored light bloomed. Within the blood-colored light, there were 2 medicinal herbs lying quietly. It was half the length of a chopstick and its shape was similar to ginseng and fire ginseng. However, its entire body was blood red, as if it had just been soaked in blood, giving off a terrifying feeling. It was the blood ginseng. Qin Feiyang suppressed the excitement in his heart and opened the other jade box. A gust of cold air suddenly hit him in the face. 2 extremely thin pieces of ice were placed within the jade box, and they were completely crystalline and translucent, and they emanated expanses of pure white icy mist. These were snow crystals. In fact, they were also ice cubes. But unlike ordinary ice cubes, snow crystals were born in extremely cold places and gradually condensed from cold air. The process would take at least more than 10 years. Although they were also ice, they would not melt as long as they were sealed well and were not exposed to the scorching sun. After confirming that there were no mistakes, Qin Feiyang closed the lid of the box quietly and kept it in his Qinkuan bag. Immediately after, he looked down at the blood-killing token in his hands and frowned. Elder Ji, it has been so long. Haven't you found out its origin? Elder Ji sighed. There are no clues at all. How can we find out? Qin Feiyang placed the blood-killing token on the table and smiled. Remember to tell me when you find out. Yes. Elder Ji nodded. I'll take my leave then. Qin Feiyang cupped his fists and turned to leave. Elder Ji's eyes flickered as he asked, the royal family is preparing to hold a competition. Are you interested in participating? Competition? Qin Feiyang raised his brows. Isn't the first prince getting married? Therefore, the king of Yan ordered to hold a competition for young people. The top 10 people will compete on the day of the first prince's wedding in front of all the big shots in Yan City. The top 3 people will receive generous rewards and can also participate in the royal banquet that night. For ordinary people, this is also a kind of glory. The registration will start tomorrow. Elder Ji smiled. Glory? Qin Feiyang sneered and turned to look at Elder Ji. He grinned and said, I want to join in the fun at the royal banquet. Will they reject me? Elder Ji was stunned and then shook his head and laughed. Indeed, with his alchemy skills, the royal family would love for him to go. In the eyes of the royal family, he might even be more important than her, the law enforcement elder. There was indeed no need for him to participate in such a boring competition. She waved her hand and said, Go back. If you want to leave the Martial Imperial Hall, report to me first. Okay. Qin Feiyang agreed readily and left the law enforcement hall quickly. He stood on a winding path with a face full of excitement. He had effortlessly obtained 4 stalks of such precious medicinal herbs. It seemed that even the heavens were helping him. Zhang Laoda. At this moment, a familiar shout rang out. Qin Feiyang looked in the direction of the voice and saw Fatso running over. He asked in confusion, What are you doing here? Fatso chuckled. Stewardly just sent me a message saying that Jia He agreed, and even obtained a 9 Suns flower from old dog He. 9 Suns flower. That's great. Qin Feiyang was extremely excited. In this way, he finally gathered the herbs for the first set of potential elixir. He really did not expect that it was Elder He who helped him so much. If those 2 old dogs know that Stewardly bought the 9 Suns flower and blood ginseng for you, they will definitely be furious. Fatso laughed sinisterly. This is nothing. When they find out the power of the potential elixir, they will definitely vomit blood on the spot. Qin Feiyang sneered. Vomit blood. Fatso was shocked. He hugged Qin Feiyang's arm and begged, Boss, just tell Fat Lord what kind of magical effect the potential elixir has. If I tell you now, there won't be any surprises. Just wait. Qin Feiyang patted his shoulder and turned to walk towards the tranquil lake. Buzz. At this moment. Chapter 173. Fatso took out the image crystal, and Manager Li's shadow immediately appeared. Is there any good news? Fatso chuckled. It is indeed good news. Manager Li nodded and asked, Where's Zhang Haotian? Boss, wait a moment, Manager Li is looking for you. Fatso quickly grabbed the image crystal and chased after Qin Feiyang. After catching up, Qin Feiyang looked at the shadow and smiled. Senior, what's the matter? Manager Li said, Brother Jiang, just now, my subordinates came to tell this old man that they found a 9 Suns flower somewhere. Where is it? Qin Feiyang was overjoyed. Black Bear City. Manager Li said. Black Bear City? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Fatso was also a little stunned. Are you surprised? It is said that the 9 Suns flower is in the deepest part of Black Bear Mountain. Manager Li laughed. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. It was not a normal surprise, but a very unexpected one. He asked, Senior, are you sure it's Black Bear Mountain? I'm sure. Manager Li nodded. Qin Feiyang asked, Then when can the people from Black Bear City's treasure pavilion send it over? Manager Lee thought for a moment. It is said that there is a Black Bear King in Black Bear Mountain, and it is quite strong. This old man has to send someone over, and it should take a day. Qin Feiyong nodded and cupped his hands. Senior, please don't hurt the Black Bear King. Manager Lee asked why? Do you know it? Yes, it saved my life. Forget it, I'll go too. Qin Feiyong was a little worried, because he understood the temper of the Black Bear Mountain. If there was a disagreement and he fought with the people of Treasure Pavilion, he would feel guilty if anything happened. Moreover, he had another very important thing to do. This matter could directly affect the situation 10 days later. Alright, be careful. This old man will go to the Lin family and the royal family to take a look. Manager Lee laughed. For the sake of a ferocious beast, he had even made a personal trip. This kid was also a loyal and righteous person. What he didn't know was that the Black Bear King had saved Qin Feiyong not just once but several times. Qin Feiyong would never forget this kindness for the rest of his life. After turning off the image crystal, Qin Feiyong returned to the law enforcement hall and explained the matter to the beautiful woman. No way. The beautiful woman didn't even think about it before replying coldly. Elder, this junior must make this trip. Qin Feiyong's attitude was also very firm. Just for a ferocious beast and a medicinal herb? The beautiful woman frowned. Qin Feiyong said, not entirely. There are also some personal matters. I don't know what to do with you. I'm not against it, but you'll have to wait a little longer. Elder Wan and the hall master should be back soon. When the time comes, I'll have Elder Wan accompany you. Looking at the stubborn Qin Feiyong, the beautiful woman felt helpless. Qin Feiyong said, there's no need for that. Elder Shi can go with me. If you're still worried, we can disguise ourselves. That's fine too. Shizheng is a 9-star battle king. He's enough to protect you in a place like Black Bear City. But you can't reveal your true identity. Jia He and Elder He have already lost their minds. The 2 battle kings who attacked Fatso and Lu Hong last time are the deacon elders of the Danwang Hall. If they know that you're going to Black Bear City, they'll definitely kill you. The beautiful woman warned with a serious face. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded and asked in confusion, since we already know their identities, why don't we take them down? After all, they killed people on the street and violated Yen City's rules. The beautiful woman sneered. If we don't catch them at the scene, who dares to go to the Danwang Hall? In short, strength is the way of the king. It was a realistic question. But this world was always so realistic. Instead of blaming the heavens and blaming others, it was better to put in more effort and cultivate diligently. After bidding farewell to the beautiful woman, Qin Feiyong returned to the soothing lake and briefed Shizheng. Then the 2 took the phantom elixir, changed their appearances, and left the martial imperial hall. None of the spies hiding outside the gate noticed anything. This was the magic of the phantom elixir. After leaving Yen City, Elder Shi brought Qin Feiyong and rushed to Black Bear City. Noon. The 2 finally entered Black Bear City. A few months passed. Black Bear City didn't change much. The Jiang family was still the dominant family. It would take a lot of effort for the other small families to rise. Treasure Pavilion. VIP room. Qin Feiyong and Shizheng sat at the tea table. Beside them was a man in purple who was serving them. It was the pavilion master of Black Bear City's treasure pavilion. He poured tea and asked, may I know your names? What business do you have with this pay? Qin Feiyong said, 9 Suns Flower. The pavilion master's eyes narrowed. Qin Feiyong smiled, don't be nervous. This news was told to me by Manager Lee. You're from Yen City? The pavilion master suddenly raised his head and looked at the 2 in surprise. Qin Feiyong nodded and smiled. Pavilion Master Pei, we're in a hurry. Let's not drink tea. Just tell us the location of the 9 Suns Flower. The Pavilion Master looked at the 2 in silence with a trace of vigilance. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. We really don't have any bad intentions. If you don't believe me, you can ask Manager Lee. Wait a moment, I'll be back soon. The Pavilion Master got up and walked out of the VIP room. Qin Feiyong smiled helplessly at Shizheng. Without a doubt, he must have confirmed with Manager Lee. After a while, the Pavilion Master strode back to the VIP room. He cupped his hands and smiled. I've offended you earlier. Please forgive me. It's okay. Qin Feiyong smiled and asked, can you tell us now? The pavilion master said, the Nine Suns flower is in the canyon where the Black Bear King lives. I went there once but was chased out by it. Canyon? Qin Feiyong was stunned. He had also been to the canyon but he didn't see any Nine Suns flower. Right. When he went there that day it was midnight and he was still unconscious. When he left the canyon he didn't pay much attention to it. The pavilion master smiled and said, Steward Li has instructed me to take you there. Do you plan to go now or take a rest first? Qin Feiyong said, of course now. After obtaining this Nine Suns flower, he had gathered 2 sets of medicinal ingredients. He and Wolf King could have 1 potential pill each. Therefore, there must be no mistakes. The 3 of them got up and left the treasure pavilion. When they passed by the entrance of the pill hall, Qin Feiyong stopped. The figures of Luo Xiong, Elder Mo and Feng Cheng appeared in his mind. Let's go, Shizheng urged. He could guess what Qin Feiyong was thinking. However, it was obvious that they couldn't go to the pill hall now. Qin Feiyong sighed inwardly and left quickly. When he returned from the Black Bear Mountain, he would find a chance to thank Luo Xiong and Elder Mo. In less than an hour, the 3 of them arrived at the canyon. Follow me. The pavilion master called out and entered the canyon, leading the way. Along the way, the 3 of them saw many bear paw prints. After a few hundred meters, the pavilion master stopped beside a rock and pointed upwards. He smiled and said, it's there. Qin Feiyong raised his head to look. Sure enough, he saw a blooming flower on the cliff. It was the size of a palm and grew between the cracks of the rocks. There were a total of 9 petals. Each petal was red like fire and looked like a small sun. It was extremely dazzling. Roar! Bang bang bang! It was also at this moment. Accompanied by a deafening roar, the ground shook. In the depths of the canyon, a huge monster rushed over with a ferocious aura. If it wasn't the Black Bear King, who else could it be? Shizheng immediately protected Qin Feiyong behind him. The pavilion master also retreated behind Shizheng. However, he didn't look at the Black Bear King. Instead, he looked at Qin Feiyong's back. His eyes were filled with doubt. What was the background of this person? Not only was there a battle king following him, but even Manager Li had instructed him to take good care of this person. Roar! The Black Bear King ran over and stopped more than 10 meters away. Its huge eyes stared fixedly at the 3 of them. Qin Feiyong pushed Shizheng away and walked to the front. He cupped his hands and smiled. Senior Bear King, it's been a few months. How have you been? The Black Bear King was stunned and looked at him in confusion. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, I remember last time. It was you who helped me detoxify the poison. That's why I was able to escape. Is that you? The Black Bear King's doubtful voice sounded in Qin Feiyong's mind. That's right. Qin Feiyong nodded. The Black Bear King said, didn't you go to Yen City? Why did you suddenly appear here? Qin Feiyong pleaded. I specially rushed over from Yen City for this Nine Suns flower. Senior Bear King, please grant me my wish. The Black Bear King looked up at the Nine Suns flower and shook his head. I have a use for this Nine Suns flower. I can't give it to you. Hurry and go back. Qin Feiyong panicked and said, Senior, the Black Bear King shouted, if I tell you to leave, then leave. Cut the crap. It seemed to be even more anxious than Qin Feiyong. Something's wrong. Qin Feiyong's heart skipped a beat. An uneasy feeling surged in his heart. With his relationship with the Black Bear King, even if the Black Bear King didn't give him the Nine Suns flower, he wouldn't be in such a hurry to chase him away. Shizheng asked, what did it say? As the Black Bear King was using telepathy, Shizheng and the pavilion master did not know what it had said before. Roar! The Black Bear King seemed to have lost its patience as it roared at Qin Feiyong. Immediately, a strong wind blew here. It blew Qin Feiyong's clothes and black hair, making rustling sounds. Humph! Shizheng snorted coldly, took a step forward, and his aura erupted. Elder, wait! Qin Feiyong quivered, and hurriedly grabbed onto Shizheng, and said in a low voice, let me talk to it first. Shizheng frowned and took a step back. Qin Feiyong looked at the Black Bear King and said in a deep voice, Senior Bear King, why is this? Did something happen? The Black Bear King said, Don't ask anything, this king will not say anything, and you will never come to Black Bear Mountain again. Leave immediately, the further the better. Qin Feiyong looked at it deeply and nodded. All right, I'll go. You're leaving just like that? The pavilion master and Shizheng were somewhat stunned. Let's go. Qin Feiyong turned around and said to the two of them, then sped towards the exit of the canyon. However, his gaze was exceptionally gloomy. The last words of the Black Bear King contained too much information. On the surface it was chasing him away, but in reality it was caring about him. Chapter 174. After Qin Feiyong and the other two left, the Black Bear King also returned to his lair. But he did not enter the cave. He stood outside the cave with an incomparably respectful expression. Who is it? A hoarse voice came from within the cave. The Black Bear King said respectfully, reporting to my lord. A few fierce beasts accidentally barged in. I have already chased them away. Guard outside well. Don't let any fierce beasts disturb me. Otherwise, I will send you to hell and reunite with your child. The hoarse voice said in a sinister voice, and then fell silent. Outside the cave, the Black Bear King's huge body suddenly trembled. He turned around and looked into the distance, his eyes filled with grief and anger. Outside the canyon, Qin Feiyong stood at the top of a big tree, looking into the depths of the canyon, his eyes flickering. Below, Shizheng and the pavilion master both had suspicious looks on their faces. Bear King has saved me many times. I can't just sit back and do nothing. I must investigate this thoroughly. Gradually, Qin Feiyong's gaze became firm. He jumped down and landed in front of Shizheng and the other two. He smiled and said, You two, I still have some things to take care of. You two can return to Black Bear City first. The pavilion master nodded. He was only here to lead the way. Since the other party already knew the location of the Nine Suns flower, there was indeed no need to continue staying. No. However, Shizheng shook his head without hesitation. Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and said, Elder, I know you are concerned about me, but please believe me, I will be fine. No matter what you say, no. Shizheng said stubbornly. Qin Feiyong was a little helpless. Didn't this person know how to be flexible? He pulled Shizheng to the side and said in a low voice, Elder, you also know that I have an ancient castle to hide in. Even if I face the War Emperor, I can protect myself. Moreover, I am very familiar with the Black Bear Mountain. There definitely won't be any problems. Just wait for me in Black Bear City. I'll look for you as soon as I'm done. Please. Qin Feiyong looked at him pleadingly. What exactly do you want to do? Shizheng frowned. Some private matters. Qin Feiyong smiled. Shizheng sighed helplessly and nodded. All right, but you must be careful. If anything happens to you, Elder Ji will skin me alive. Thank you, Elder. Qin Feiyong was delighted. It really wasn't an easy task to convince this honest man. Shizheng rolled his eyes at him and turned to leave with the pavilion master. Actually, letting Shizheng leave was also for Shizheng's safety. He had an uneasy premonition in his heart. If he really encountered any danger, he could hide in the castle, but Shizheng would be in danger. Because Wolf King was in the castle, he couldn't let Shizheng in. Who? After letting out a long sigh, Qin Feiyong waved his hand and Wolf King appeared out of thin air. As soon as it came out, it asked, What happened to the black bear? I don't know. Qin Feiyong shook his head and said in a deep voice, Let's go and take a look, but we can't go directly. Let's go to the back of the canyon first, then we can discuss. Okay. Wolf King nodded. The man and wolf ran at full speed in the forest. Along the way, they tried their best to avoid the ferocious beasts. When they encountered creatures like poisonous insects that ambushed them, they quickly got rid of them. Even so, by the time they reached the back of the canyon, their bodies were already covered in wounds. However, because they were worried about the black bear, they didn't pay much attention to their injuries. After taking the healing pill, the man and wolf looked up at the mountain in front of them. Wolf King smiled slyly. The black bear's lair is on the other side of the mountain. Why don't we dig a hole here? We might just be able to reach the black bear's treasure trove. Qin Feiyong's face twitched. This bastard, was he worried about the black bear or the black bear's treasure trove? Cough cough. The Wolf King coughed dryly and said somewhat guiltily, "Brother Wolf is a loyal wolf. Don't get the wrong idea. Who are you trying to fool?" Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes and quietly climbed to the top of the mountain. A few hundred breaths later, the man and wolf finally climbed to the top of the mountain. However, due to the lush vegetation, they were unable to see the situation below the canyon. Qin Feiyong glanced ahead, pointed to a mountain on the left and said, "Let's go there, we can see the black bear's lair." After another few hundred breaths, the man and wolf arrived at the top of the mountain. They hid in a patch of grass and looked down. That moment, they saw the Black Bear King sitting in front of the cave entrance, looking as if he had lost his soul. Wolf King said, "Something is indeed wrong. Let's go down and ask." "Don't worry." Qin Feiyong pressed it down and said in a deep voice, "I keep feeling uneasy. Let's take a look at the situation first." Suddenly, he noticed that on the right side of the cave entrance, there was a mound of dirt. It was a few meters tall and overgrown with weeds. "That's not right." He frowned and asked, "White-eyed Wolf, was there a mound of dirt there before?" Wolf King looked over and shook his head. "Brother Wolf is very familiar with this place. I can tell you very responsibly that there definitely wasn't one before. Looking at the weeds on it, it should have been piled up a few months ago." "Strange, why would the Black Bear King build such a mound of dirt?" Qin Feiyong frowned. Wolf King sniffed with his nose. His pupils suddenly constricted and exclaimed, "There's someone down there." "Someone?" Qin Feiyong's face changed. Could it be that Shizhong had returned? Wolf King said in a deep voice, "That's right, there are 3 unfamiliar smells." Qin Feiyong heaved a sigh of relief. 3 smells, then it couldn't be Shizhong. He couldn't help but become vigilant as he carefully scanned the area below. But other than the Black Bear King, there was no one else. Could it be in the cave? He couldn't help but look at the entrance of the cave, but he couldn't see the situation inside. 1 man and 1 wolf lay in the grass, motionless, waiting until it was dark. When the sky turned dark, a fire appeared in the cave. But the Black Bear King was outside the cave the whole day, so it couldn't be the Black Bear King who started the fire. "Sure enough, there's someone here," Qin Feiyong muttered. He looked up at the sky. The bright moon hung in the sky, and the stars twinkled. A night like this should give people a sense of tranquility. But Qin Feiyong's heart was extremely irritated at this moment. In the middle of the night, "Beast, go and find some firewood." A cold voice suddenly sounded in the cave. This voice, Qin Feiyong looked at the cave, his eyes full of surprise. "It's Lin Chun." Wolf King pondered for a moment, and suddenly a low voice resounded in Qin Feiyong's mind. "That's right. It's him." Qin Feiyong's body and mind trembled, and his eyes shone brightly. But then his face turned pale again. If Lin Chun was here, it meant that Zhuan must be here too. Everyone thought that after Zhuan's whereabouts were exposed and he stole the alchemy fire from the Pill Hall, he would definitely leave the Black Bear City or even the county of Yan. Qin Feiyong had always thought so too. But he didn't expect that Zhuan was hiding in the Black Bear Mountain. Sure enough, the most dangerous place was the safest place. If it wasn't for the 9 Suns flower, no one would know even if Zhuan hid here for the rest of his life. The Black Bear King went to find a few dead wood and entered the cave. But soon he came out again and stood guard outside. Qin Feiyong glanced at the cave, and then looked at the Black Bear King. He then brought Wolf King to the castle. Wolf King said anxiously, "Little Qinzi, what should we do? Zhuan is so powerful, how can we save the Black Bear King? And Fengchang is probably in the cave too." Qin Feiyong lowered his head and pondered. The Black Bear King's body was too big to bring him to the castle. The only way was to let Zhuan leave the Black Bear Mountain. But it was impossible. "Have you thought of a way? If Zhuan loots the treasure trove, everything will be over." It was a slip of the tongue. Don't misunderstand, Brother Wolf is really worried about the Black Bear King. In a moment of desperation, Wolf King let it slip. When he realized it, he quickly explained. But no matter how he explained, Qin Feiyong would not believe him. This white-eyed wolf was really only concerned about the treasure trove. Wolf King said, "You have to believe in Brother Wolf. Although Brother Wolf is concerned about the treasure trove, he is more concerned about the Black Bear King." "That's enough." Qin Feiyong glared at him fiercely. He pondered for a moment, and the corners of his mouth gradually pursed into a cold smile. Today is different from the past. Now that we have the image crystal, we can catch them all in one fell swoop. As soon as he finished speaking, he took out the image crystal and quickly became excited. Soon, Fatso's shadow appeared. Zhang Laoda, what are you doing? Have you found the 9 suns flower? Fatso half reclined on the chair with his legs crossed, looking leisurely. Qin Feiyang said, Go to Elder Ji immediately and tell her that I have found Zua An's whereabouts. Fatso was so frightened that he immediately flipped over from the chair. He hurriedly got up in a hurry and shouted angrily, What did you say? You found Zua An? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Okay, just you wait. Fat Lord will go to Elder Ji immediately. After Fatso turned off the image crystal, he hurriedly ran out of the attic. Lu Hong walked out of the room and stood on the balcony. She asked Fatso what happened. Zua An has appeared. Fatso shouted without looking back. Lu Hong's complexion instantly turned deathly pale. She hurriedly leaped down and chased after the fatty. In the law enforcement hall, Fatso did not knock on the door and directly barged into the beautiful woman's lounge. The beautiful woman frowned and said angrily, What are you doing? Fatso said anxiously, Elder, something bad has happened. Zhang Laoda has encountered Zua An. What? Elder Ji suddenly got up and landed in front of Fatso. She said angrily, How is he now? He seems to be fine. Fatso shook his head in panic. Elder Ji said, Quickly contact him. I want to ask him in person. Okay. Fatso activated the image crystal. When Qin Feiyang's shadow appeared, the beautiful woman asked anxiously, Where is Zua An? Are you okay? Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, Zua An is at Black Bear Mountain. He has not found me yet. Wolf King hid in a corner to avoid being seen by the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman heaved a sigh of relief and said, I will inform the temple master immediately. You must be careful. Do not let him find you. This time, no matter what, we must not let this old fox escape. We will contact you again when we reach Black Bear City. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Chirp. As soon as the image crystal was turned off, the loud cry of an eagle could be heard in the castle. Chapter 175. Why is there an eagle's cry? Qin Feiyang left the castle with Wolf King. He quickly lay down in the grass and looked at the valley. Then, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. Above the cave, a huge falcon was circling in the air. There were at least 20 people in its 2 huge claws. Those people were all dead. Below the falcon stood a young man. It was Lin Chun. He glanced at the people in the falcon's claws and smiled at the falcon. These are a good harvest. I can refine more than 20 blood evil pills. The falcon's eyes flashed with a sharp light. The falcon loosened its claws. More than 20 corpses fell to the ground in front of Lin Chun with loud thuds. Lin Chun shouted, Black Bear King, why are you still standing there? Hurry up and move them in. There was a trace of reluctance in the Black Bear King's huge eyes. But there was no other way. He had to do it. Lin Chun looked at it with disdain. He raised his head to look at Falcon and said, Master has instructed us to capture more people tomorrow. As usual, do not hunt in Black Bear Mountain to avoid arousing suspicion. Chirp. The falcon let out a sharp cry, flapped its black wings and rushed out of the valley. At the same time, a man and a wolf also entered the castle. After the falcon left, Qin Feiyang and Wolf King appeared again. These 2 bastards really use people to refine pills. Qin Feiyang clenched his fists. His eyes were full of murderous intent. He was not against killing people. After all, this was the law of survival. But using people to refine pills was simply inhumane. Such people could not be appeased even if they were cut into pieces. Wolf King said in a low voice, Little Qin Zi, calm down. Don't alert the enemy. This was a good opportunity. There could not be any accidents. Otherwise, if Zua An escaped, he did not know when he would be able to find him again. This point, Qin Feiyang also knew very well. So he suppressed the anger in his heart. Time flew. It was almost dawn, but there was still no news. What are they doing? Qin Feiyang frowned. It had already been an entire night. With the speed of the martial King Hall Master and the others, they should have arrived by now. The morning sun rose. All things were awakening. At this moment, Qin Feiyang's imaging crystal finally reacted. Continue monitoring. Call me if you need anything. After instructing Wolf King, he entered the castle and took out the image crystal. Rays of light were emitted. Fatso's phantom appeared. Qin Feiyang said angrily, Fatso, what are they doing? Why aren't you here yet? Fatso said, coming. We are now in the forest in front of the canyon. Come over quickly. Jungle? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He frowned and asked, then what are you doing here? There's no other way. Ling Yunfei needs to cultivate, and Lu Hong doesn't want to come. We can only sacrifice Fat Lord this time. Fatty had a helpless expression on his face. Qin Feiyang thought about it carefully and understood. Only Ling Yunfei, Lu Hong, and Fatso had established a contract bridge with him. If the giants of the county of Yan wanted to contact him, they had to go through one of them. I won't go over. You guys go around to the back of the canyon. I'll wait for you here. Remember, don't make any noise. Also restrain your aura. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. Okay. Fatso nodded. After turning off the imaging crystal, Qin Feiyang took an illusion form elixir and turned into Zhang Haoyan's appearance. Then he left the castle, sent Wolf King into the castle, and ran to the foot of the mountain. In less than 100 breaths, 6 figures entered his sight. 2 of them were Fatso and Shizheng. Shizheng had also recovered his true appearance. Qin Feiyang had seen the martial arts hall master before, so he could naturally recognize him. As for the other 3, they all looked middle-aged. Although they had retracted their aura, one could tell at a glance that the 3 of them were not simple people, because their aura was too outstanding. His gaze was also extremely sharp, like the edge of a blade. A group of people walked over silently. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, Greetings, seniors. Zhang Haoyan, although I've been in Xingyue City, I've heard rumors about you every day. I've always been curious if you have 3 heads and 6 arms. But today, I see that you're no different from an ordinary person. The person who spoke was Luo Qingzhu's father, Zhang Zheng. He was about 1.85 meters tall and slightly thin. He wore a fitted white robe, and there were spots of white hair at his temples. On his weathered face there was an easygoing smile. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and said, Senior Zhang, these are all rumors. You can't take them seriously. Among the 4 giants of the county of Yan, only the chief pavilion master was in Xingyue City. So, even if no one introduced him, he knew. Rumors? Zhang Zhengyi was stunned. He shook his head and laughed. Qin Feiyang looked at the last person and cupped his hands. Senior, you must be the king of Yan. This person had a strong body. He wore a golden robe and a crown on his head. He exuded the aura of a king from head to toe. He was no stranger to this aura of a king. Moreover, only the county kings of the 18 counties were qualified to wear a crown. The king of Yan nodded and smiled faintly. Little brother, you've done a great job this time. When we catch Zwan, I'll reward you handsomely. Thank you, king of Yan. Qin Feiyang thanked him and looked at the last person. This person was tall and straight. His eyebrows were as sharp as swords. There was no expression on his face, and he looked extremely cold. There was no doubt that this person was the hallmaster of the Danwang Hall. Greetings, senior. He bowed politely. The hallmaster of the Danwang Hall only nodded faintly. Qin Feiyang was too lazy to ask for a rebuff. He glanced at the 4 giants and said, Zwan is on the other side of the mountain. Other than Elder Feng, the Black Bear King is also in his hands. I would like to ask the 4 of you to save them first before dealing with Zwan. The hallmaster of the Danwang Hall immediately said, I don't agree. What if Zwan escapes while we're saving them? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and asked, Senior, are you saying that you're going to sacrifice them? For the sake of the big picture, we can only sacrifice them. As the law-enforcing elder of the Pill Hall in Black Bear City, I believe that Feng Cheng is prepared to die. The hallmaster of the Danwang Hall said coldly. Qin Feiyang clenched his fists and said, Senior, if I may offend you, Elder Feng is not your slave. Why should he be sacrificed? Is this what you should say as the hallmaster of the Grand Hallmaster? The hallmaster of the Danwang Hall raised his eyebrows and said faintly, "This is the business of the Danwang Hall. Is it your business?" Qin Feiyong said, "Indeed, it's none of my business. However, I owe Elder Feng and the Black Bear King a debt of gratitude, even if I'm insignificant in front of you." "I thought you didn't know your place," the hallmaster of the Danwang Hall said faintly. Qin Feiyong stared at him. His fists clenched tighter and tighter. Birds of a feather flocked together. He was the same as Jia He and Elder He. Such a person in the Danwang Hall. It's disgusting. All right. If you really want to sacrifice them, I don't have any objections. However, I'm afraid it's wishful thinking for you to catch Swan today. Qin Feiyong's face darkened. There was a trace of madness in his eyes. What are you trying to do? Do you believe that I won't kill you right now? The hallmaster of the Danwang Hall narrowed his eyes. There was a dangerous signal in his eyes. To be honest, I'm not afraid of you. Qin Feiyong sneered. All right, let's not talk too much. Ma Cheng, you are really something. No matter what, you are someone with status. How can you be so calculative with a member of the younger generation? Zhang Haotian is right. As the hallmaster of the Danwang Hall, you shouldn't have said such words. Seeing that the two were about to fall out, the people of Theta Wang Hall hurriedly tried to calm them down. The hallmaster of the Martial King Hall looked at Qin Feiyong and comforted him. Don't worry. Feng Cheng is also Feng Ling Heir's grandfather. I won't leave him in the lurch. Thank you, senior. Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and thanked the hallmaster. He then looked at Ma Cheng and shook his head. This is the difference between people. Senior Ma Cheng, how can you accept this? A cold light flashed in the depths of Ma Cheng's eyes. The hallmaster of the Martial King Hall frowned and reprimanded. Little brat, stop talking. Qin Feiyong also knew when to stop. If they continued, Ma Cheng would definitely go crazy. King of Yen said, "Bring us up first." Qin Feiyong said, "To be honest, I've already thought of a plan." "Tell me about it." Zhang Jingyi looked at him with good intentions. "Lure the snake out of its hole. As long as we make some noise here, Xuan will definitely come to check it out. At that time, you guys will hold him back while Elder Shi and I will go to save Feng Ling Heir. If Xuan doesn't come and only sends Lin Chan, it's fine too. We can capture him and interrogate him about the situation in the cave. As long as we know the situation inside, it won't be difficult to save Senior Feng." Qin Feiyong said. He had been thinking about it for the whole night. This was the most reliable method. Shizheng asked, "What if he sends the Black Bear King to check it out?" "It's naturally better if the Black Bear King comes. The reason why he didn't tell me the truth yesterday must be that he was worried that I would be implicated. But now that you guys are here, the situation is different. There's nothing for him to worry about," Qin Feiyong said with a smile. The hallmaster of the Martial King Hall pondered for a moment and looked at Zhang Jingyi and the other two. He said with a smile, "I think his idea is feasible. What about you guys? Do you have any objections?" "No." King of Yen smiled faintly. "I have no objections either," Zhang Jingyi said with a smile. He was more and more curious about Qin Feiyong. Only Ma Cheng did not express his opinion. King of Yen patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile, "What's there to think about? It's settled." Then he looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Bring us up." The group of people quietly climbed up the mountain. When they arrived at the top of the mountain, Qin Feiyong pointed down and whispered, "Xuan is there. The one squatting at the entrance of the cave is the Black Bear King." Their gazes immediately changed. The hallmaster of the Martial King Hall said in a deep voice, "Zhang Haotian, you're the one who made the plan. Hurry up and make the arrangements. We'll listen to you now." "Listen to me?" Qin Feiyong was stunned and hurriedly said, "Thank you, senior." However, before he could make the arrangements, Ma Cheng suddenly roared, "Xuan, come out and face your death." Then he jumped and landed down, his aura soaring into the sky. Bastard! Chapter 176. The King of Yen, Zhang Jingyi, and the Martial King Hall Master changed their expressions as well. Seeing that Qin Feiyong was about to rush down, Zhang Jingyi pulled him back and whispered, "Don't be rash. Although Ma Cheng is petty, he won't do anything that will ruin the overall situation." The king of Yan nodded. That's right. He might have a better plan. Let's take 2 steps back and not let Zhuan notice us. The 3 powerhouses in Shizheng retreated and held their breaths, waiting for Ma Cheng's attack. Qin Feiyang and Fatso lay in the bushes, glaring at Ma Cheng. Boss, do you believe him? Fatso asked softly. Qin Feiyang did not reply. His gaze was as sharp as an eagle's and was aggressive. Below, the Black Bear King was the first to get up and looked at Ma Cheng in horror. This was an expert. He was no weaker than the person in the cave. The moment Ma Cheng landed, a black figure darted out of the cave. It was a sinister-looking old man in a black robe. His eyes were sunken and emitted a sinister green light. That's right. He was Zhuan. Zhuan's pupils constricted when he saw Ma Cheng. He said in shock and anger, "How did you find this place?" Ma Cheng sneered. "It's all thanks to Jiang Haotian." Qin Feiyang, who was lying on the mountaintop, shuddered violently. He turned to look at Theta Wang and the others and said coldly, "Is this his plan? Can't you see that he has no intention of saving Feng Cheng and the Black Bear King?" The 3 of them frowned as well. At the same time, when he heard Jiang Haotian's name, Zhuan's sinister eyes shone with a cold glint. "It's that little bastard again. Where is he?" "He's up there." Ma Cheng pointed to the mountaintop. "Ma Cheng, you've gone too far." The Martial King Hall Master shouted angrily and turned into a streak of light, diving towards Zhuan. The King of Yan and Zhang Zhengyi exchanged glances and darted towards Zhuan as well. They planned to capture the leader first. As long as they could capture Zhuan, Feng Cheng and the Black Bear King would not be in danger. At the same time, the Black Bear King also ran towards Ma Cheng. It knew what was going on when it heard Jiang Haotian's name. However, Zhuan was even faster. When he saw that Theta Wang and the Black Bear King was also here, he caught up to the Black Bear King's tea in a single step. The old hand reached out and grabbed the Black Bear King's thigh. His 5 fingers were like steel needles, instantly sinking into the Black Bear King's flesh. He forcefully lifted it. The Black Bear King roared and its huge body fell down, creating a deep crater in the ground. Watching this scene, Qin Feiyang bared his teeth and cracked his eyes. His body was shivering. Originally, the Black Bear King was not far from Ma Cheng. Ma Cheng could save the Black Bear King before Zhuan did. He did not help Black Bear did not help the help bear help. Qin Feiyang's heart was filled with hatred. If it dares to take another step closer, I will crush its head. At this moment, Zhuan stepped on the Black Bear King's head and looked at Theta Wang and the Black Bear King with a sinister smile. "Lin Chun, bring that old thing out as well." He shouted coldly again without turning his head. Almost at the next moment, Lin Chun dragged an old man with disheveled hair out of the cave. It was Feng Cheng. But at this moment, he was covered in wounds and unconscious. Lin Chun was still quite nervous when he saw the 4 giants. He hid behind Zhuan and did not dare to raise his head. Seeing this, King Yan and the other 2 frowned. They changed their direction and landed beside Ma Cheng. Zhang Zhengyi sighed. "Ma Cheng, you shouldn't have done this." "Shouldn't have?" Ma Cheng was so angry that he laughed. "Then I'd like to ask you, why should I listen to the arrangements of a young boy?" The Martial King Hall Master said angrily. "Don't you know that you have to look at the big picture?" Ma Cheng said disdainfully, "The big picture? It's ridiculous. With the 4 of us here, how can he escape?" "Alright, since things have come to this, let's not talk about it anymore." King Yan shouted and looked at Lin Chun gloomily. He said coldly, "As a disciple of the Lin family and a core disciple of the Danwang Hall, how can you be in cahoots with the devil Zhuan? Are you letting down everyone who has trained you?" Lin Chun's face turned pale. Zhuan grinned. "With me here, don't be afraid of them. Stick out your chest. Sooner or later, you will trample them under your feet." Lin Chun's body trembled slightly. The nervousness in his heart suddenly disappeared. He held his head high and looked directly at the 4 with a sneer on his face. Zhang Zhengyi shouted, "Zhuan, I advise you to turn back and be saved. Don't be obsessed. You said the same thing in Yen City back then. But after so many years, I'm still alive and well. I'm not interested in you now." Zhuan grinned and looked up at the top of the mountain. He said with a sinister smile, "Zhang Haotian, if you don't want them to die, Get down here now. Fatso's eyes trembled. He asked, Boss, what should we do? Qin Feiyong did not hesitate. He stood up and looked at Zhuan. Little bastard, you're good. I was fooled by you last time at the Eagle Claw Peak. I was hiding here and you found me again. I can't help but wonder if I owed you something in my previous life. Zhuan frowned. This kid was simply his nemesis. Qin Feiyong jumped a few times and landed in the canyon. Fatso followed closely behind him. There would be a fierce battle later. He would only be safe if he stayed by Qin Feiyong's side. Elder Shi also followed beside him. Qin Feiyong did not say a word. He walked step by step towards Wen Ma Cheng, who was at the side, pursed his lips and sneered. Silly boy, didn't I ask you to never come back? Why are you so disobedient? The Black Bear King's angry voice resounded in Qin Feiyong's mind. Qin Feiyong raised his head and looked into the Black Bear King's eyes. He smiled and said, You've saved my life a few times. How can I stand by and do nothing? Sigh, you're so silly. The Black Bear King sighed. Fortune favors fools. Qin Feiyong smiled and looked down at Zhuan. He said, I don't want to talk nonsense. Let them go and I'll go with you. No. The Martial Lord Hall Master immediately shouted. Qin Feiyong said, This is my personal matter. Please don't interfere. Zhuan looked at Qin Feiyong with flickering eyes. There's nothing to think about. I'm more valuable than them. I can help you refine the supreme grade blood spirit pill. I believe it won't be long before you step into the 9-star combat emperor realm or even higher. Qin Feiyong said expressionlessly. King Yan and the others frowned. Zhuan glanced at the 4 overlords and said, That's a good idea. But aren't you afraid of being hunted down by them? Hunted down? I'll tell you the truth. I've made a plan. If you follow it step by step, you'll definitely die today. But some old bastard wants to take revenge on me. Do you think I still need to be afraid? I hate them more than you do now. I can follow you. If you don't mind, we can join hands. You have the strength and I have the brains. We can turn the county of Yen upside down. Qin Feiyong said coldly. The Martial Lord Hall Master's heart sank. The situation had become serious. Ma Cheng was not angry. Instead, the sneer on his face became thicker. Because if Qin Feiyong really reached an agreement with Zhuan, he would have every reason to kill Qin Feiyong in front of the Martial Lord Hall Master. Zhuan looked at Ma Cheng thoughtfully, then looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Are you that confident? Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, At least, I'm stronger than that trash Lin Chan. Lin Chan clenched his fists and his eyes were gloomy. Zhuan said with a smile, Compared to Lin Chan, you're indeed much stronger. Haha, suddenly. Zhuan laughed out loud. Little bastard, do you think I don't know what you're planning? You'll definitely hide after I release them. At that time, those 4 old dogs can attack me without any scruples. Zhuan looked at him mockingly. Qin Feiyong's heart shuddered. This old fox was not easy to fool. Little bastard, do you know? I hate you so much that I can't wait to drink your blood and eat your flesh. But after thinking about it, I changed my mind. It's too easy for you to kill you directly. I'll torture you and make you suffer so much that you'll wish you were dead. I'll completely destroy you mentally. You want them very much. Alright, I'll give them to you. Anyway, they're no longer of any value. Zhuan kicked the Black Bear King's head. And that huge body smashed towards Qin Feiyong with the sound of wind and thunder. At the same time, the Black Bear King let out a blood-curdling scream. The Martial Lord Hall Master waved his hand, caught the Black Bear King, and placed him on the ground. Qin Feiyong hurriedly looked over, only to see that the Black Bear King's head had already split open, and blood was gushing out. Senior Bear King. He roared, squatted in front of the Black Bear King, took out a large pile of healing pills, and stuffed them into the Black Bear King's mouth. Zhuan laughed sinisterly and picked up Feng Chang. Streams of battle qi madly rushed towards Feng Chang's heart. The excruciating pain woke Feng Chang up. Qin Feiyong raised his head abruptly, his eyes widening in anger as he rushed towards Zhuan without caring about his own safety. Jiang Haoyan, calm down. Shi Zheng hurriedly hugged him and advised anxiously. Pain. Sorrow. Tsk, this is just the beginning. The more painful things are yet to come. One day, you'll regret provoking me. You'll kneel in front of me like a dog and beg me to spare you. Haha. Xuan laughed maniacally and threw Feng Cheng in front of Qin Feiyang as if he was throwing rubbish. Following closely, he grabbed Lin Chun and charged into the sky without even looking back. Where do you think you're going? The king of Yan and Zhang Jingyi shouted angrily at the same time, carrying a monstrous aura as they chased after him. Watch him. The martial lord hallmaster instructed Shi Zheng, glanced at Ma Cheng gloomily, and quickly chased after him. Humph. Chapter 177. However, Qin Feiyang was completely unaware of their departure. Elder Feng, Senior Bear King, you won't die. He grabbed the highest grade healing pills and stuffed them into the Black Bear King and Feng Cheng's mouths one by one. It was as if as long as they took enough pills they would be able to live. Fatso watched from the side and was about to get angry. The Bear King's head was broken. Feng Cheng's heart was broken. It was obvious that there was no hope. He wanted to comfort him, but he didn't know how to say it. Shi Zheng also lowered his head in silence. He didn't expect that this seemingly strong young man would have such a weak side. Suddenly, Feng Cheng stretched out his old hand and grabbed Qin Feiyang's wrist, laughing intermittently. Brat, I didn't expect to see you again before I die. As he spoke, he vomited blood. Qin Feiyang hurriedly said, Elder Feng, don't talk. If you don't say it now, you won't have the chance. Brat, promise me a request. Linger's parents died early. Since we were young, we relied on each other for survival. The one I can't let go of the most is her. When I die, help me take care of her, okay? Feng Cheng looked at him pleadingly. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded, suppressing the emotions in his heart. He turned to look at Shi Zheng and smiled. Elder Shi, can you leave me for a while? I have something to say to Elder Feng. Okay. Shi Zheng turned and walked outside. Qin Feiyang turned back to look at Feng Cheng, only to find that Feng Cheng had already closed his eyes. His heartbeat and breathing had also stopped. He originally wanted to tell Feng Cheng his true identity, but now there was no chance. I also have something to ask of you. At this time, the Black Bear King's voice entered his mind. Senior, no matter what it is, I promise. Qin Feiyang raised his head and nodded with a forced smile on his face. Do you see that mound? My child is buried there. I hope you can bury me next to it. Let me continue to protect it. Xuan didn't find the treasure vault. You can take everything in there as well. As the Black Bear King spoke, 2 drops of blood flowed down from the corners of his eyes. It was filled with endless sorrow. After saying this, its aura of life also stopped. Boom! Qin Feiyang was like a bolt from the blue. The black bear cub is dead? It turned out that the mound was its grave. It had only been a few months, so why did it become like this? Why suddenly? He raised his head and roared. Meanwhile, rumble, crack. In the distance, a series of loud noises came, shaking the heavens and the earth. Terrifying shockwaves from the battle spread rapidly. They're fighting. Fatso and Shi Zheng looked at the sky in surprise. But Qin Feiyang didn't look at him, looking indifferent. He got up and walked to the side of the mound. True qi gushed out from the soles of his feet, and with a boom, a deep pit suddenly appeared. After burying the Black Bear Queen, he bowed deeply 3 times before the grave. There weren't any bold words. Everything seemed plain and simple. After that, he walked into the cave alone and saw many corpses. It was too horrible to look at. But there was no change in his expression. He entered the treasury, took everything and left the cave. He carried Elder Feng's body and walked out of the canyon. Shi Zheng hurriedly asked, Zhang Haoyan, where are you going? Qin Feiyang said, Black Bear City. Fatso chased after him and asked, Boss, don't you want to see what happened to Xuan? Not interested. Qin Feiyang whispered. He looked up at the sky, and 2 rays of light shot out, because he won't die. Won't die. Fatso and Shi Zheng looked at each other, with a trace of surprise in their eyes. For giants working together, how could they not be able to deal with Xuan? Qin Feiyang explained and left the canyon silently. Black Bear City. Isn't he Zhang Haotian? I heard he went to Yen City. Why did he suddenly come back? Look, isn't the person he's carrying the pill hall's Elder Feng? That's right, it's him. I heard that he was kidnapped by Xuan a few months ago. Why is he dead now? As soon as Qin Feiyang entered Black Bear City, the people on the street surrounded him. But with Shizheng around, no one could get close. Qin Feiyang went straight to the pill hall, but he did not go in. He stood outside the door. After a while, two familiar figures entered his line of sight. They were Luo Xiong and Elder Mo. What's going on? Zhang Haoyan, how did Elder Feng die? The two hurriedly ran to Qin Feiyang and asked with a sad face. Qin Feiyang did not explain. After passing Elder Feng to Luo Xiong, he said, "Seniors, please bury him." Okay. The two nodded. They had a lot of questions to ask. But Qin Feiyang did not give them the chance to ask. He took out a jade box and stuffed it into Elder Mo's hand. After saying goodbye, he left with Shizheng and Fatso. Elder Mo opened the jade box and his eyes trembled. There were 4 supreme grade red fire-glazed elixirs inside. The elixir patterns were dazzling. Where's Brother Jiang? Where is he? Not long after, Jiang Wei hurriedly ran over and asked Luo Xiong and Elder Mo. He's gone. Luo Xiong sighed deeply and left with Elder Mo. The two of them looked very lonely. They had heard about the situation in Yen City. If it wasn't for those people from the Danwang Hall, how would it end up like this? Outside the city, Qin Feiyang followed a small path and entered a forest. He took out 3 illusory form elixirs. He took one and gave the other 2 to Fatso and Shizheng. The two of them looked at each other and took the elixir suspiciously. Fatso was puzzled. Boss, is there a need to change your appearance now? Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, you can't let your guard down. After changing your appearance, go to Black Bear City and wait for me. I want to go somewhere. Shizheng raised his eyebrows and said, no, I can't let you leave alone. I'm just going to a small village. I'll be fine. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he gave Fatso a look. Fatso understood and pounced on Shizheng, hugging him tightly. At the same time, Qin Feiyang turned and quickly disappeared into the forest, disappearing from Shizheng's sight. Shizheng was shocked and said angrily, Fatso, what are you doing? Let go of me. Unless you kill Fat Lord. Fatso refused to let go inside. Elder Shi, Fat Lord knows that you are concerned about Zhang Laoda, but I am more concerned about his safety than you are. Don't worry, he will be fine. Shizheng frowned and said in a deep voice, if anything happens to him, will you be responsible? If I'm responsible, I'll be responsible. Let's go to Spring Breeze restaurant to drink and get drunk. After Fatso consumed the illusory form elixir, he dragged Shizheng towards Black Bear City. In front of a fast-flowing river, Qin Feiyang turned his head and glanced at the forest behind him. Seeing that Shizheng did not chase after him, he finally let out a long sigh. The place he was going to now was Iron Ox Town, so he definitely could not let Shizheng follow him. The current him was no longer the same as before. In less than half a day, they arrived at Iron Ox Town. Entering the town with an unfamiliar face would definitely arouse suspicion. After all, Iron Ox Town was not big and there were not many people. Everyone knew each other. I say, young man, where did you come from? What business do you have in our Iron Ox Town? A few old men who were playing chess under a big tree stopped Qin Feiyang and asked curiously. Qin Feiyang just smiled at them and walked past them. What a strange kid. The old men shook their heads and did not pay much attention to him. Lin family. Qin Feiyang stood in front of the gate, looked at the 2 servants and said indifferently, take me to see Lin Chong. Who are you? Is the patriarch someone you can see whenever you want? Tell me your name. The 2 servants shouted coldly. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly and directly rushed in. How dare you? Coming to my Lin family to behave atrociously. See if I don't break your dog legs. The 2 servants were full of hostility, waving their fists and punching towards Qin Feiyang. Humph! Qin Feiyang snorted and turned around to slap them. Slap! The 2 servants were slapped away on the spot. A bright red palm print quickly appeared on their faces, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of their mouths. If you dare to block my way again, I'll kill you. After coldly leaving behind these words, Qin Feiyang strode into the Lin clan. He was no stranger to the Lin family. He walked to the meeting hall with ease. The servants he met along the way were a little confused. Who was this master? After passing through a garden, he found Lin Chong sitting alone in a pavilion, drinking wine. His clothes were disheveled, his hair was disheveled, and his face was dirty. He looked like an old man with one foot in the grave. Qin Feiyong walked behind the two servants and asked, "What's wrong with Lin Chong?" "Sigh, it's all because of Mississippi. Ever since Miss went to Yen City, the patriarch has been like this, drinking all day and doing nothing. If this goes on, the Lin family will decline sooner or later." The two servants sighed. After that, they found that something was wrong. They turned to Qin Feiyong and scolded, "Who are you? What are you doing in our Lin family?" "I'm here to find your patriarch," Qin Feiyong said lightly and strode toward the pavilion. The two servants looked at each other and hurriedly chased after him. With Qin Feiyong's current speed, how could the two servants catch up with him? He walked into the pavilion. Immediately, the smell of wine and stench mixed together, forming a stench that assailed his nose. He frowned, looked at the drunk Lin Chong, and shook his head. "I didn't expect you to become like this in less than a year. Who are you? Are you here to drink with me?" Lin Chong stood up drunkenly and staggered toward Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and stood aside. With a bang, Lin Chong lost his balance and fell to the ground. The two servants ran over and hurriedly helped him up. Smelling the stench, disgust filled the faces of the two men. Qin Feiyong shook his head. "As the patriarch of the Lin family, you even began to hate the servants. How can you be such a failure? I don't need your help. Get out of my way." Chapter 178. Get out. Qin Feiyong snorted, looked at the two maids and asked, "Where is the pond?" One of the maids said, "There is one in the backyard. Why are you looking for the pond?" "Take me there." Qin Feiyong stretched out his big hand and picked Lin Chong up as if he was picking up a chick. The two maids were hesitant, because they guessed what Qin Feiyong wanted to do. Qin Feiyong shouted, "If you don't want to die, lead the way quickly." The two maids shuddered and quickly ran to the backyard. Dong! In front of the pond, Qin Feiyong directly threw Lin Chong in without saying a word. "Help!" At that moment, in the water, Lin Chong began to struggle madly. He kept calling for help. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He turned to look at the two maids and asked, "He can't swim?" The two maids nodded, leaned together, and shrank their bodies. Their small faces were pale. Who dared to throw the patriarch into the pond? Who was this person? Qin Feiyong frowned and said, "Then why don't you call someone to save him? I won't be responsible if he drowns." "Come on. The patriarch is drowning." The two maids immediately shouted. Almost at the next moment, in a nearby attic, a servant ran out. When he came to the pond, he saw Lin Chang's situation and hurriedly jumped in. It took him a lot of effort to save Lin Chong. The servant took a few breaths, glared at the two maids and shouted, "What's the matter with you? If anything happens to the patriarch, can you bear the responsibility?" "It has nothing to do with us. It was he who threw the patriarch in." The two maids pointed to Qin Feiyong. The servant looked at Qin Feiyong and shouted, "You dare to murder the patriarch? Are you looking for death? Get out." Qin Feiyong spat out this word coldly. "What did you say? I dare you to say that again." That servant's eyes widened in anger, full of hostility. "Scram," Qin Feiyong said. "You're courting death." The servant let out a low growl and pounced at Qin Feiyong. "Stop." But at this moment, a low shout came from behind. "Patriarch." The servant was overjoyed and quickly turned around to look. Lin Chong got up from the ground and shook his head hard to get rid of the last trace of drunkenness. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. That servant ran to Lin Chang's side and sternly said, "Master, he was the one who threw you into the pond. He must have eaten a leopard's guts." Lin Chong let out a long breath and walked in front of Qin Feiyong. He sneered and said, "Do you know why this patriarch asked him to stop?" Qin Feiyong said indifferently, "I'm not interested." "Even if you're not interested, you still have to listen. It's because this patriarch wants to personally blow your head off." Lin Chong laughed sinisterly. True qi surged as he punched towards Qin Feiyong. "You don't have this ability now." Qin Feiyong stretched out his arm and easily caught Lin Chang's fist. "How is this possible?" Lin Chong was shocked. He used all his strength but couldn't pull his hand out. That servant was also dumbfounded. This person was actually so strong? Even the patriarch could be easily subdued. Fortunately, before he didn't really rush up. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lin Chong was shocked and angry. Who the hell are you? Qin Feiyong let go of his hand and said lightly, I want to talk to you alone. Lin Chong shook his hand and looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. He waved his hand and said, all of you retreat. That servant and 2 servant girls, as if they had been pardoned, disappeared in a few blinks of an eye. Lin Chong said, say it now. Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, your current appearance is really embarrassing. But this is what you asked for. No one will sympathize with you. Is this what you want to say? Lin Chong clenched his fists. His eyes flashed fiercely. Qin Feiyong said, I don't have so much time to care about your affairs. I'm just thinking that if Lin Yi knows that you have become like this, she should be very sad. Lin Chang's gaze trembled. He stepped forward and grabbed Qin Feiyong's clothes. He roared with a ferocious face, how do you know, Yi? Who the hell are you? Qin Feiyong didn't speak. He just looked at him faintly. After a while, Lin Chong reacted. He hurriedly let go of his hand and bowed, sir, I'm sorry. I offended you. Qin Feiyong said, if I give you another chance, will you still deal with Qin Feiyong? Lin Chang's body shook. He said in surprise, you know Qin Feiyong? Answer me. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Lin Chong lowered his head. His hands were clenched together. His face was distorted and looked ferocious. He hated Qin Feiyong from the bottom of his heart. It was because Qin Feiyong killed Lin Bailey that Lin Han was enraged. He snatched Yi and forced him to sign the agreement to sever the father-daughter relationship. So in his view, all of this was caused by Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong looked disappointed and shook his head. It has been so long, but you are still stubborn. You are hopeless. People like you really shouldn't be sympathized. Who do you think you are? Do you know what Qin Feiyong did to me? How much do you know about Qin Feiyong? What right do you have to criticize me here? Lin Chun roared with all his might. I don't want to argue with you. Just pretend that I didn't come this time. Qin Feiyong said lightly, then turned and left. Lin Chong stared at Qin Feiyong's back angrily. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and his body trembled. He hurriedly said, are you Qin Feiyong? That's right. Go and tell Lin Han. This is a good opportunity. He should reward you with some benefits. No. It shouldn't be a reward. It should be alms. Qin Feiyong said sarcastically without turning his head. He is really Qin Feiyong. Lin Chong felt very uncomfortable and incredulous. In less than a year, he had become so strong. Was he still the trash from before? Seeing that Qin Feiyong was about to leave his sight, he suddenly shivered and shouted, wait. Qin Feiyong didn't stop and left the Lin family. Why did he suddenly appear? What does he want to do? Revenge? Doesn't seem like it. If it's revenge, now is the best opportunity. Lin Chong muttered to himself. He really couldn't figure out the purpose of Qin Feiyong's return. Suddenly, a sharp light flashed. He hurriedly ran into a secret room, walked to the image crystal and put his hand on it. But he immediately withdrew his hand. There was a struggle on his face. Should he report to Lin Han? After repeating this for a while, he made up his mind, turned around and ran out of the secret room. He hurriedly came to the door, looked at the 2 servants and asked, where is that person just now? Which direction did he go? Patriarch, you're finally awake. The 2 servants were very excited. Lin Chong said angrily, I asked you a question, didn't you hear it? The 2 of them were stunned and soon knew who Lin Chong was talking about. Because in the whole day, only one person had come to the Lin family, and that was the person who slapped them. He seems to have gone in the direction of the treasure pavilion. Patriarch, did he do something to you? Don't worry, I'll go gather everyone now and find him to settle the score. The 2 servants' faces were filled with hostility. Slap! But what they didn't expect was that Lin Chong actually slapped them in the ear. Stay here obediently. If you dare to touch him, I'll kill you first. Before the 2 of them could react, Lin Chong left a ruthless sentence and ran in the direction of the treasure pavilion. We're going to help him vent his anger, but he actually hit us? Is he crazy? The two of them looked aggrieved and puzzled. Treasure pavilion. Reception room. A dignified and beautiful woman sat by the tea table, sizing up the person opposite her. The woman was Luo Qianxue. As for the person opposite her, it was naturally Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Senior, you still don't recognize me?" "I don't recognize you." Luo Qianxue shook her head, her face full of suspicion. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Now that he had changed his appearance and let Luo Qianxue guess, it was a bit too much for her. He smiled and said, "Senior, I'm Qin Feiyang." "What?" Luo Qianxue suddenly stood up and said in surprise, "Is it really you?" "It's really me." Qin Feiyang nodded. Seeing the beautiful woman in front of him again, he felt a sense of familiarity that he hadn't felt for a long time. He felt very at ease. Luo Qianxue walked up and knocked on Qin Feiyang's head. She said angrily, "Brat, you're back. Why do you still need me to guess?" Qin Feiyang rubbed his head, looking charmingly naive. Come, sit here." Luo Qianxue shook her head and laughed. She pulled Qin Feiyang to the chair next to her. Qin Feiyang didn't sit down and let Luo Qianxue sit down first. Then, he bowed to Luo Qianxue and said solemnly, "Senior, thank you for lending me a hand when I was in danger. I can't thank you enough." Luo Qianxue smiled and said, "It's just a small matter. Don't call me senior. You're not weak now. If you don't mind, just call me Aunt Xue." "Aunt Xue?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. There was an inexplicable throbbing in his heart. He nodded and said, "Feiyang can't wait. Why would I mind?" Luo Qianxue made tea and sighed. "Your life this year is really exciting." Qin Feiyang asked, "Aunt Xue, you mean?" Luo Qianxue said, "Qingzhu has already told me about your deeds through the image crystal. It's been hard on you to experience so much at such a young age." Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Without pressure I won't grow. This is what Uncle Yuan taught me. It only took 5 years to teach such a promising child. Qin Yuan is really great." Luo Qianxue shook her head and sighed. She poured a cup of tea and placed it in front of Qin Feiyang. She asked, "Why did you come back this time?" Qin Feiyang picked up the teacup, took a sip and nodded. "There are indeed some things, but I didn't do it. But it doesn't matter. The situation I set in Yen City should be enough for me to reverse the situation." He came to Iron Ox Town for Lin Chong. Because Lin Chong was clear about the conflict between him and Lin Bailey. If Lin Chong helped to speak, then Lin Han couldn't find any excuse to refute him. More importantly, it was not a simple matter to let the royal family cancel the wedding of Lin Yi and the eldest prince. But if Lin Chong was present, the effect would be different. After all, Lin Chong was Lin Yi's biological father no matter what. An agreement couldn't be broken. Unfortunately, until now, Lin Chong still didn't repent. Chapter 179. Plot. Luo Qianxue was also very surprised. A young man who was not even 16 years old dared to plot in Yen City? This kind of mentality was really shocking. After a moment of silence, Luo Qianxue asked, "Do you want to restore your real identity?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "I can't use the name Zhang Haotian for the rest of my life." "That's true." Luo Qianxue nodded, thought for a moment and asked, "When do you plan to show your cards?" Qin Feiyang said, 9 days later. And the first prince's wedding ceremony. Hearing this, Luo Qianxue's intelligent eyes flashed with a strange light. Knock knock. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Luo Qianxue asked, "Who is it?" "Pavilion Master, Master Lin wants to see you." A woman's voice came from outside. "Do you want to hide?" Luo Qianxue frowned and looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "No, because he came to see me." "See you?" Luo Qianxue's face showed a trace of suspicion, and she said to the people outside the door, "Let him in." The door was pushed open, and a young woman stood at the door. When the young woman stepped aside, Lin Chong entered their sight. After seeing Qin Feiyang, he was happy and hurried in. "Close the door. Without my permission, no one is allowed to enter the reception room." Luo Qianxue ordered the young woman. "Yes." The woman answered, closed the door and left. Lin Chong walked to Qin Feiyang, cupped his hands and said, "Qin Feiyang, in the past, Qin Feiyong waved his hand and said, "Let's not talk about the past. Just tell me your purpose." Lin Chong wanted to say something, but he swallowed it back and looked at Luo Qianxue. Qin Feiyong said, "It's okay. Aunt Xue is not an outsider. Just say it." "Aunt Xue?" Lin Chong was shocked. When did Qin Feiyong become Luo Qianxue's nephew? Qin Feiyong frowned. "Is there anything wrong? If there's nothing important, don't waste my time." Lin Chong said, "I want to ask you to help me save Yi. Weren't you the one who insisted on sending her to the royal family? Why do you want to save them now? Moreover, the one who's going to marry her is the first prince, the future county king of the county of Yan. I'm just a nobody. How would I dare to go against the royal family?" Qin Feiyong sneered. "Yes. In the past, I was blinded by desire and didn't think about Yi's feelings. But ever since Yi left, my heart has become very uncomfortable. I have reflected again and again, regretted it again and again. But what can I do? In front of Lin Han, I'm just an insignificant wretch. I can only use alcohol to numb myself every day. I thought that I might spend the rest of my life like this. But your appearance gave me hope." Lin Chong said guiltily, "Don't make it sound so pompous. You drank because Lin Han took Yi away from you. He took away the power that belonged to you. You're begging me now because you're not convinced and don't want Lin Han to succeed. Am I right?" Qin Feiyong mocked. Lin Chang's face became extremely ugly, because Qin Feiyong's words were all his inner thoughts. It was tantamount to stripping him naked and exposing him in front of others without any reservation. "Lin Chong, you may not know Qin Feiyong's current status in Yan City. Let me tell you this. Every decision he makes now can cause a big storm in Yan City," Luo Qianxue said faintly. In the beginning, in order to stop Lin Yi and Qin Feiyong from being together, this person could be said to be unscrupulous. How could he have thought that the trash back then would have today's achievements? Perhaps when he learned the truth, even his intestines would turn green with regret. Hearing this, Lin Chang's face was full of disbelief. Even if Qin Feiyong's strength had become stronger now, it was impossible for him to become an important figure in a place like Yan City. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and said, "Go back, I can't help you with this matter. Feiyong, I really know I was wrong. I was going to report to Lin Han just now, but I finally figured it out. Just help me. Even if you don't give me face, at least for Yi's sake. You don't want to see her marry into the royal family and be depressed for the rest of her life." Lin Chong begged. "You still know that she will be depressed?" Qin Feiyong suddenly stood up and said angrily, "What were you doing at that time? You only know regret now. Are you worthy of being Yi's father? Have you ever considered for her?" Lin Chong couldn't find anything to say for a while. "I'll kneel for you, okay? In the end." He gritted his teeth, bent his knees and knelt on the ground. Seeing this, Luo Qianxue stepped forward and grabbed Lin Chang's shoulder. She turned to look at Qin Feiyong and said meaningfully, "After all, he is Yi's biological father." Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed. It seemed that Luo Qianxue and he had thought of the same thing. "Okay, I'll give Aunt Xue face." After a moment of silence, Qin Feiyong nodded, took out an illusory form pill, threw it to Lin Chong and said lightly, "Go back and arrange it immediately. Follow me to Yan City later." "This is a supreme grade pill." Luo Qianxue's eyes lit up. "What? A supreme grade pill?" Lin Chong was shocked and hurriedly looked at the illusory form pill. When he saw the bright pill pattern, his eyeballs almost popped out. Qin Feiyong frowned and said, "Hurry up and arrange it before I regret it." Okay. Lin Chong nodded repeatedly and turned to leave quickly. About half an hour passed. Lin Chong came again. Qin Feiyong also said goodbye to Luo Qianxue and rushed to Black Bear City with Lin Chong. But before leaving, he gave Luo Qianxue a supreme-grade red fire-colored glass pill. In this way, his original supreme-grade red fire-colored glass pills were all gone. Only the first prince's 10 pills were left. When they arrived at Black Bear City, it was already late at night. After calling Fatso and Shizheng, they rushed back to Yan City overnight. Calm Heart Lake. Qin Feiyong sat in front of the tea table, looked at Lin Chong and said, "Before he gets married, you'd better not leave Calm Heart Lake. Otherwise, if anything happens, I won't be responsible." Lin Chong nodded. His heart was in disbelief. Luo Qianxue said that Qin Feiyang's status in Yin City was not ordinary, but he didn't believe it. But on the way here, he finally deeply understood. The 9-star Battle King's personal protection. The martial imperial palace treated him as a distinguished guest. This kind of treatment was really amazing. Qin Feiyang said again, Lu Hong, take him up and arrange a room for him. Follow me. Lu Hong glanced at Lin Chong, turned and walked to the second floor. Soon, Lu Hong went downstairs again, frowning. Who is he? Qin Feiyang said, Yi's father. Lu Hong and Fatso looked at each other, a trace of doubt in their eyes. Don't ask about this, help me count the things in this Qinkuan bag. Qin Feiyang took out a Qinkuan bag and put it on the tea table. Inside was the Black Bear King's treasure. Fatso sighed secretly, suddenly grinned, took out a big red flower and said, Boss, look at what this is. 9 Suns flower? Qin Feiyang turned his head and looked, and said in a daze, where did it come from? You forgot it so quickly? Fatso rolled his eyes and said, it's the one in the canyon. When Shizheng and I were drinking at Spring Breeze restaurant, we suddenly remembered that we had forgotten to pick it, so we ran back to pick it. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead, feeling rather annoyed. At that time he had completely thrown the 9 Suns flower to the back of his mind. Fortunately, Fatso remembered otherwise, he would have to make another trip. Thank you, Qin Feiyang said with a smile as he took the 9 Suns flower. His eyes flickered with radiance. He looked at Fatso and asked, did you see Zuan and the others when you went back? Fatso shook his head and said, they were long gone. By the way, should we tell Feng Ling Er about Feng Cheng's death? Qin Feiyang hesitated for a moment and said, I'll tell her later, let's contact Manager Li first. Fatso took out an image crystal and his genuine chi surged. Manager Li's image quickly appeared. Manager Li said in surprise, you're already back? Isn't it obvious? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Has one been killed? Manager Li asked. I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. He was not in the mood to ask. He asked, how's the collection of medicinal herbs? Manager Li said, the Lin family has a snow crystal, and the royal family has a 9 Suns flower, but they don't intend to sell it. Why? Qin Feiyang frowned. Manager Li said, they said they want to use it as a prize for the competition. You should know about the competition organized by the royal family, right? Qin Feiyang nodded. The first prize is a 9 Suns flower, the second prize is a snow crystal, and the third prize is a leaf of the red glaze tree. Manager Li smiled. The rewards are so generous? Qin Feiyang was surprised. These 3 medicinal herbs were rare. The royal family and the Lin family were really generous. Manager Li joked, Brat, you're so smart. Can't you see that the royal family is actually trying to lure you to participate? They're targeting you. Lure me? Qin Feiyang frowned. He really couldn't figure it out. Manager Li said, according to reliable sources, the first prince is the one who arranged the prizes. Do you understand now? So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. He pursed his lips and sneered. Fatso and Zuan had humiliated the first prince last time. They must have held a grudge against him. The first prince was a smart person. He knew that Zuan would not participate in such a boring competition. So he used these 3 precious medicinal herbs as bait to force Zuan to participate. His purpose was to defeat Zuan, humiliate him, and embarrass him in front of everyone in Yin City. Manager Li said playfully, so are you going to participate or not? Qin Feiyang said with a smile, I was worried that I couldn't find a suitable wedding gift. I didn't expect him to deliver it to me. Do you think I should go or not? We won't be polite to people who are looking for trouble, Fatso said with a smirk. Interesting. Manager Li couldn't help but laugh. Qin Feiyang said, Senior, I'll have to trouble you to send the medicinal herbs over now. Then you must prepare the gold coins. This is not a small sum. Chapter 180. The First Prince. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered for a while before asking, do you know the cultivation of the first prince? We don't know. Fatso and Li Mu shook their heads. Qin Feiyang got up and said, I'll go to the cultivation hall. When Steward Li comes, you can ask him about the rules of the competition. The more detailed, the better. Lu Hong frowned and said, "You've come back in a hurry. Go and have a rest first. I'll talk to Fengling Heir." Fatso nodded. It could be seen that although Qin Feiyong looked strong, he was actually very tired. They really wanted to share some of the burden with Qin Feiyong. "It's okay. You've done me a great favor by counting the Qinkuan bag." Qin Feiyong smiled, turned around, walked out of the attic, and went straight to the cultivation hall. 2 deacon elders were guarding here. One of them asked in confusion, "What are you doing here?" Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and said, "I want to see Fengling Heir." "I guess that you're looking for Fengling Heir. She's in the number 1 cultivation room. Go in by yourself. Remember to be reserved." The 2 of them said with a smile, which was very ambiguous. Reserved? Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. Did they forget that he was still a minor? But he didn't explain. He cupped his hands to the 2 of them and walked into the cultivation hall. In front of the number 1 cultivation room, Qin Feiyong looked at the stone door and didn't knock for a long time, because he could imagine how sad Fengling Heir would be when she learned of Feng Cheng's death. Knock knock. In the end, he let out a long breath and reached out to gently knock on the door. But after waiting for a long time, Fengling Heir didn't open the door. "She's not here?" Qin Feiyong frowned. Just as he was about to turn and leave, the stone door slowly opened and a pale face entered Qin Feiyong's line of sight. Qin Feiyong looked at Fengling Heir. There were tear stains on her cheeks, and her eyes were red and swollen. She looked rather haggard. It was obvious that she had just cried. A trace of doubt crept onto his face as he asked, "What's wrong with you? What's the matter?" Fengling Heir asked a question instead of answering. Her voice was a little hoarse. Qin Feiyong swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. "If there's nothing else, then leave. I'm not in the mood to entertain you right now." After Fengling Heir finished speaking, she reached out and closed the stone door. What needs to be said must be said. Qin Feiyong sighed inwardly. He reached out his hand and pressed on the stone door. He looked at Fengling Heir and said, "Your grandfather," immediately. Fengling Heir's body trembled. "What is it?" Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and asked, "You already know?" "Yes. It was Elder Ji who told me personally." Fengling Heir nodded. Tears streamed down her face. Qin Feiyong said in surprise, "How did she know? Could it be that the palace master has returned?" "I don't know anything. I just want to be alone." Fengling Heir shook her head. With a bang she slammed the door shut. The sound of sobbing could be heard vaguely. Qin Feiyong stood in front of the door. He was at a loss. "Hao Yan, in the entire Martial Imperial Palace, you have the best relationship with Ling. You should comfort her." Suddenly, the voice of an old man echoed from behind. Qin Feiyong was startled. He turned his head and saw Elder Wan standing behind him. His old face was full of worry. Qin Feiyong said angrily, "Senior, can't you make some noise when you walk?" Elder Wan smiled, but it was very stiff. Qin Feiyong asked, "Is the palace master back?" "He's on his way back. By the way, let me tell you a piece of bad news. Zuan escaped." Elder Wan said, "This should be good news." Qin Feiyong pursed his lips and sneered. Elder Wan frowned and said unhappily, "What are you talking about?" "The truth. With a villain like Ma Cheng, it's hard not to fail. By the way, did you tell Fengling Heir the real cause of Feng Cheng's death?" Qin Feiyong asked. "No. She's very sad now, and she's still so young. We don't want her to bear too much." "Don't tell her either. In addition, the palace master has reached an agreement with Ma Cheng. The Danwang Hall will no longer target you. But in advance, you can't spread what Ma Cheng did in the Black Bear Mountain. Especially that fatso. Tell him to keep his mouth shut." Feng Cheng said with a serious face. Since he dared to do it, why would he be afraid of others talking about it? Qin Feiyong said angrily. After all, he is the palace master of the Danwang Hall. His reputation is very important. Our palace master, King Yan, and pavilion master Jiang also have to think about the overall situation. In such a complicated environment, many things can't be done as you want. Elder Feng Cheng's face was also full of helplessness. Qin Feiyong said self-deprecatingly, "The death of Feng Cheng and the Black Bear King in exchange for our peace. This is really a good deal. Alas! Elder Wan sighed softly, patted him on the shoulder, and comforted him. The dead can't be brought back to life. Don't be too sad. Live well in the present. After saying that, Elder Wan turned and left. He came here to comfort Fengling Heir. But now, it seemed that he didn't need to comfort her. Ma Cheng. Qin Feiyong clenched his hands tightly, and his eyes became aggressive. Although he couldn't do anything to Ma Cheng now, he would slowly collect interest. He turned to look at the cultivation room and was about to leave. But at this moment, Fengling Heir opened the stone door and walked out of the cultivation room. She said indifferently, "Follow me." Qin Feiyong followed silently. Since he had promised Feng Cheng, he naturally had to do it. Turned out that Fengling Heir was going to drown her sorrows in alcohol. Drinking until midnight, she was already drunk to the point of unconsciousness. Qin Feiyong carried her back to the Jingxin Lake. Fatso and the other two immediately went up to greet him. Arriving at the second floor, Qin Feiyong walked into a room and placed Fengling Heir on the bed. Then, he got up and looked at Lu Hong, smiling. "Go get a basin of water to wipe her, and then change her into a clean set of clothes. During this period of time you don't have to do anything. You are responsible for accompanying her. Go out more often and talk." "Okay." Lu Hong nodded. "Thank you for your hard work." Qin Feiyong smiled and said to Fatso, "Come down with me." The two of them quickly went downstairs and sat beside the coffee table. Qin Feiyong asked, "Where are the medicinal herbs?" Fatso took out 2 Qiankuan bag and said excitedly, "Do you know what Fat Lord found in the Black Bear King's treasure? 2 red glass trees, a total of 6 leaves, 7 fire ginseng, 2 blood ginseng, 1 9 suns flower, and 1 snow crystal." "What?" Qin Feiyong was dumbfounded. There were actually such precious medicinal herbs? Fatso said, "Other than these, there are many other precious medicinal herbs. As for gold coins, there aren't many, only 1,000,000. Qin Feiyong laughed. "With those medicinal herbs, would we still lack gold coins?" He was very grateful to the Black Bear King, but at the same time he blamed himself even more. If he hadn't informed King Yen and the others, how could the Black Bear King have died? Fatso frowned and said angrily, "Boss, don't take all the responsibility on yourself. This is increasing the pressure on yourself. If you want to blame someone, blame that old bastard Ma Cheng." Qin Feiyong said with a faint smile, "I'm fine." Sigh. Fatso sighed and said with a smile, "Fat Lord has sorted it out. We have already gathered 3 sets of medicinal herbs for the potential elixir and 6 sets of medicinal herbs for the red glass elixir. They are all in this Qiankuan bag." Fatso pointed to the Qiankuan bag on the left. 3 sets. Qin Feiyong was overjoyed. He turned to look at Fatso, his eyes flickering. Fatso touched his nose and chuckled. "Why are you looking at Fat Lord like that? Are you also mesmerized by Fat Lord's handsomeness?" That moment, Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "I might as well give all the medicinal herbs and gold coins to you for safekeeping." Fatso was slightly stunned and said with a sneaky smile, "Aren't you afraid that Fat Lord will fill his pockets?" Qin Feiyong said lightly, "It doesn't matter. Anyway, when the time comes, I will ask you for the medicinal herbs." "You want to be a hands-off shopkeeper." Fatty had a helpless expression on his face. To be honest, it is not safe to leave the medicinal herbs and gold coins with Fat Lord. What if Fat Lord is robbed? So we have to separate them. The medicinal herbs will be with Fat Lord, and the gold coins will be with Lu Hong. "Boss, what do you think?" Fatso asked. Qin Feiyong laughed. "You have considered it quite thoroughly. You guys do as you see fit. I will go and refine the potential pill first. Give me the Qiankuan bag after you have sorted it out. Remember to leave me some pocket money. In your dreams, Fat Lord won't leave you a single silver coin." Fatso laughed sinisterly. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at him, grabbed the Qiankuan bag on the left, and prepared to enter the castle. "Boss, wait, what should we do with this?" Fatso hurriedly called out to him and took out a piece of paper. Qin Feiyong took a look and his face immediately darkened. This was an IO. It was written that Qin Feiyong owed Treasure Pavilion 30 million gold coins. If he did not pay it off within a month, he would receive 1,000 gold coins interest every day. 30 million, where are we going to find it? Damn it, why doesn't that old bastard manager Lee rob us? Fatso's face was filled with anger and a headache. Qin Feiyong asked, how many gold coins do we have now? Fatso said, more than 4 million. Only 4 million, it's really a drop in the bucket. When I refine the scarlet fire-colored glass pill, I will use it to pay off the debt. Qin Feiyong threw the ayu to Fatso and disappeared without a trace. Not long after, Lu Hong went downstairs. Fatso asked, how is she? Asleep. Lu Hong smiled and asked, what were you guys talking about downstairs just now? Fatso said, boss said that from now on, Fat Lord will be in charge of medicinal herbs and you will be in charge of gold coins. In other words, Fat Lord will be in charge of resources and you will be in charge of finances. Lu Hong laughed. This is a good thing, it means that he trusts us a lot. So you have to do a good job and not let boss down. How about we go on a date and have a candlelit dinner to celebrate? Fatso stared at her lecherously. Lu Hong's face immediately turned cold. Fatso shrunk his neck and hurriedly ran away. At the same time, in a certain hall of the palace, Lin Hao frowned. Your Highness, the elimination round will begin tomorrow. Zhang Haoyan still hasn't come to register. Do you think he will come to participate in the competition? The eldest prince said. If I knew, would I still be here worrying? Lin Hao said. Let's increase the reward. The eldest prince's eyes lit up. This was a good idea. All right. Tomorrow morning you will announce it. The prize for first place is a 9 suns flower and a snow crystal. The prize for second place is 3 leaves of the scarlet fire-colored glass tree. The prize for third place is a fire ginseng. I don't believe that I can't lure him out. Chapter 181. At dawn, Qin Feiyong walked out of the castle and pushed the door open. He saw that Feng Ling had woken up and was standing alone by the lake, looking at the clear water in a daze. Lu Hong was accompanying her. Qin Feiyong walked over and apologized. I'm sorry, I'm incompetent. I couldn't save your grandfather. Feng Ling said, this has nothing to do with you. You don't have to blame yourself. Qin Feiyong's lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Boss, you're so early. Fatso's voice came from the other side of the lake. Qin Feiyong looked up and saw Fatso standing on the other side of the wooden bridge, waving at him. You're even earlier. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Of course, haven't you heard? The early bird gets the worm. Fatso chuckled and quickly ran over saying, Boss, Fat Lord really heard a strange news. What news? Qin Feiyong and Lu Hong looked at him suspiciously. The prize of the competition has suddenly doubled. Fatso explained in detail. After listening, Qin Feiyong sneered. This eldest prince is really impatient. Feng Ling turned to look at him and frowned. Are you going to participate in the competition? Qin Feiyong said. With such a tempting prize in front of me, how can I not go? Feng Ling thought for a moment and said, then I'll go too. I have nothing to do anyway. No. Fatso shook his head. Why not? Feng Ling asked. Qin Feiyong was also puzzled. Fatso said, according to the rules of this competition, only those under the age of 18 can participate. If Fat Lord remembers correctly, you should be 18 years old. Feng Ling frowned and said, why did they set this rule? That's what the first prince said. He wants to give the youngsters from Yin City a chance. In fact, it's to prevent martial arts prodigies like you from participating in the competition. Especially since you have a good relationship with us, you will definitely help us. If you go, the first place will be yours and his plan won't succeed. Tell me, is this bullshit first prince despicable? Fatso sneered. Qin Feiyong said, that's a good thing. Lu Hong nodded and said with a smile, indeed, if the younger generation were to participate, we would have no hope of winning. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while, then looked at Fatso and said, go and call Ling Yunfei. We'll meet at the gate. Okay. Fatso chuckled, turned around and ran away. Qin Feiyong looked at Feng Ling and asked, do you want to join in the fun? Feng Ling said, if we can't participate, why should we go? All right then. Qin Feiyong nodded and said to Lu Hong, accompany her. After saying that, he turned around and walked towards the wooden bridge. At the same time, Shi Zheng was jumping down from the balcony of the attic next door. Qin Feiyang walked over and said with a smile, Elder Shi, the palace master and Ma Cheng have already reached an agreement. There's no need to continue protecting me, right? Shi Zheng said, it's better to be careful. Qin Feiyang thought for a moment and nodded, all right, then I'll have to trouble you, Elder. Although Ma Cheng agreed, it was hard to say what Jia He would do. What if he secretly sent someone to assassinate him behind Ma Cheng's back? Moreover, there was the blood token. This force was mysterious and unfathomable. He had to be careful. The two of them arrived at the entrance. After waiting for a while, Fatso and Ling Yunfei arrived. As soon as Ling Yunfei walked over, he said, Fatso has already told me the details. It won't be a problem to enter the top 3. Don't be careless. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The first prince had prepared for so long. He would definitely not let them win easily. It was likely that many of the geniuses in this competition had already been bribed by the first prince. Next, he brought the 3 of them and walked out of the martial imperial palace in a dignified manner. Zhang Haoyan is out. He finally showed up. Where is he going? Let's go and take a look. The spies of the various major powers all followed behind the 4 of them. Qin Feiyang naturally noticed it, but he didn't care. Treasure Pavilion. VIP room. Manager Li glanced around and asked curiously, Brother Jiang, where are you going to cause trouble in this group of people? Senior, you're already so old. Can't you be more serious? Qin Feiyang was very helpless. He took out a jade box and threw it on the desk. Manager Li opened the jade box and 6 top-grade red fire-colored glass pills immediately appeared. After a quick glance, he looked up at Qin Feiyang and asked, are these used to pay off the debt? Isn't it obvious? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said angrily, also, don't write an EU in the future. It's annoying just looking at it. There's no other way. This is the rule. We're all honest people. We have to abide by it, right? However, these 6 pills are worth at most 25 million. It seems to be a little less than 30 million. Manager Li chuckled. Fatso said angrily, old bastard, can't you give us a discount? Sorry, I've already given you a 9% discount. Manager Li said with a smile. A 9% discount? Fatso was stunned and said angrily, you might as well not give us a discount. How can you ask for a 9% discount when you don't even know? Manager Li sighed. Alas, I can't help it. Business is hard. In order to help you find those medicinal herbs, I almost broke my legs. How can you bargain with me here? Qin Feiyang's face twitched. He took out 2 more top-grade red fire-colored glass pills and threw them to Manager Li, saying, take the extra as a reward for your hard work. Good, good, good. Boss Jiang is so generous. Manager Li was overjoyed. 2 top-grade red fire-colored glass pills were worth at least 8 million. In other words, he could get 3 million as a reward. As for the rest, they were public funds. He didn't dare to touch them. Let's go. Qin Feiyang called Ling Yunfei and the other 2 and walked out. Go. Manager Li was stunned and hurriedly said, wait. Is there anything else? Qin Feiyang asked. Manager Li said, the account hasn't been settled yet. How can you leave? You still have to give me 2 top-grade red fire-colored glass pills. Qin Feiyang's body stiffened. He turned to look at him and asked, why? Manager Li said, nonsense, of course, to give to Jia He. Otherwise, do you think I took those 3 blood ginseng for free? Qin Feiyang frowned. Not included in the 30 million? No. Manager Li said. In this way, I bought nearly 40 million medicinal herbs this time, didn't I? Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. Weren't the medicinal herbs of the potential pill a bit too expensive? Shi Zheng and Ling Yunfei next to him were also dumbfounded. What medicinal herbs were worth 40 million? Manager Li stared at him carefully and said, Boss Jiang, I have to tell you, you can't go back on your words, or I'll ask Jia He to ask for it from you. Do I look like someone who would go back on his words? Qin Feiyang glared at him angrily, took out 2 top-grade red fire-colored glass pills and threw them over. In fact, his heart was aching. 10 top-grade red fire-colored glass pills were gone as soon as he came to the treasure pavilion. He was really bleeding a lot. Boss Jiang is indeed a man of his word. Manager Li gave him a thumbs up and laughed heartily. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said, continue to help me collect those medicinal herbs. Especially the snow crystal, 9 suns flower, and blood ginseng. Manager Lee smiled. As long as you have money, everything is negotiable. But can you reveal a little bit what kind of pill you want to refine? You want to know? Wait patiently. Qin Feiyong laughed, turned around and strode away. Bastard. Manager Lee cursed secretly, but he was more and more curious. Fatso chased after him and frowned. Boss, I still want to save some money, but if you squander it like this, I'm afraid we'll be poor for the rest of our lives. Don't worry, when the time comes we only need 1 pill and we'll get back the cost. Qin Feiyong said with a smile, showing off absolute confidence. Hearing this, Shi Zheng and Ling Yunfei looked at each other and couldn't help but feel surprised. What kind of pill could be worth 40 million gold coins? Fatso's eyebrows were also full of doubts. Leaving the treasure pavilion, Shi Zheng took the 3 of them and rushed to the East City district. This news quickly spread to the ears of the first prince and Lin Hao. They're finally here. This time, I'm going to make a fool of you in public. Let's go and welcome them. The first prince sneered, got up and walked out of the hall. Welcome. Lin Hao was slightly stunned and frowned. There's no need for that. The first prince said, I have to see him sign up with my own eyes before I can be completely relieved. Okay. Lin Hao nodded, got up and followed the first prince to a square outside the palace, waiting quietly. There were many young people around. When they saw the 2 of them, they ran up to curry favor. They didn't know how long they had waited. In short, they were impatient. Finally, 4 familiar figures entered their line of sight. At the same time, Qin Feiyong also noticed the first prince and the second prince. Ling Yunfei sneered. Needless to say, they must be waiting for us. Then let them wait a little longer. Fatso smirked, glanced at the 2 sides of the street, and locked his eyes on a shop on the left and said, Boss, there's a clothing shop, shall we go in and shop? Okay, I'm also planning to buy some clothes. Qin Feiyong nodded. Under the astonished gaze of the first prince and Lin Hao, Qin Feiyong and the other 2 went directly into the shop. These 3 brats are really a headache. Shi Zheng shook his head and smiled bitterly, and could only follow in. After buying clothes, they entered a shop that sold shoes. After buying shoes, the first prince and Lin Hao thought that they were coming, but they didn't expect that they would enter a jewelry shop. Your Highness, they must be doing it on purpose. Lin Hao roared angrily. Even if it's on purpose, you have to bear with it. The first prince said in a low voice, his hands hidden in his sleeves tightly clenched. Obviously, he was also very angry. Your Highness, what are you doing here? At this moment, a puzzled voice sounded. A young man in purple walked out of the crowd and strode towards the first prince. Behind him, there was a man and a woman, both of whom were in their late 20s and had extraordinary temperaments. The first prince smiled. Shuiyang, why are you here? Shuiyang said, I brought Junior Xie and Junior Wang to sign up for the competition. The first prince glanced at the man and woman, and his eyes flashed slightly. He looked at Shuiyang and said, Zhang Haoyan is in that jewelry shop, go and see what they are doing. Lin Hao added, if there's a chance, teach them a lesson. Zhang Haoyan. Shuiyang's eyes suddenly surged with strong killing intent, and he sneered, Your Highness, don't worry, leave it to me. Let's go. Chapter 182. Inside the shop, Qin Feiyong was casually looking at the accessories. The shop owner was also a middle-aged fatso, but he was not as outstanding as Fatso. He followed him closely and kept introducing the items. Fatso called out, Boss, it's time to go. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded. The fat shop owner immediately showed a disappointed look. This was a big customer, but unfortunately, he did not sell anything. Huh. Qin Feiyong was about to turn around when he suddenly saw a red jade pendant. The fat shop owner's eyes lit up and hurriedly introduced it. Young Master Jiang, this jade pendant is called Flaming Phoenix. Look at its color, how bright it is, and the phoenix pattern, how charming it is. To be honest, young Master Jiang, the Flaming Phoenix is the most famous carving master in Yin City. Carefully carved with the best fire jade. Let's not talk about its value. Just its craftsmanship alone is worth collecting. The fat shop owner's mouth was like a river, exaggerating. Qin Feiyong asked, just say it, how much is it? The fat shop owner stretched out his hand. 500,000. 500,000? Fatso shouted and walked over. He looked at the so-called flaming phoenix and mocked, "We're not idiots. If you don't give us a reasonable price, we'll leave immediately." The fat shop owner smiled and said, 400,000, no less. Fatso sneered, "It's more profitable than selling elixirs. 50,000 at most. Sell it or not." The fat shop owner's face twitched and he smiled bitterly. "Brother Fatty, your bargaining is too outrageous." His eyes were full of resentment, as if to say, "Brother Fatty, we're all Fatso. Why do you have to make things difficult for Fatso? Forget it if you don't want to sell." Fatso ignored the resentful eyes and dragged Qin Feiyang outside. The fat shop owner gritted his teeth and said, "Young Master Jiang, I'll sell it even if I lose money. 50,000 it is." "That's more like it." Fatso smiled proudly. Qin Feiyang asked, "Do you have any more?" "If there's only one, I don't want it." Hearing this, the fat boss's face became very interesting, because the more he sold, the more he would lose. But he really wanted to do business with Qin Feiyang. He gritted his teeth and nodded. "Yes, there are 4 more." Fatso angrily said, "Fuck, haven't you heard that the rarer something is, the more precious it is? You have so many here, and you still want to collect them? Even Fat Lord doesn't think 50,000 gold coins is worth it." The fat boss said bitterly, "My Fat Lord, I'm really selling at a loss. I swear to God." Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Okay, help me wrap it up." "All right." The fat boss ran off to get busy. Qin Feiyang took out the Qianquan bag and looked at it carefully. A row of black lines immediately appeared on his forehead. In such a large Qianquan bag, there was not even a single gold coin. He looked at Fatso and said angrily, "Didn't I say very clearly that you would leave me some pocket money? Now I don't even have a single silver coin. How do you want me to pay the bill?" Qin Feiyang and Shizheng were stunned. The fat boss was also petrified on the spot. A dignified supreme-grade alchemist actually had no money? Fatso shrunk his neck and said with an embarrassed smile, "The financial power is now in Lu Hong's hands. Fat Lord can't make the decision. If you want to settle the score, go to her." Qin Feiyang's veins were bulging. This guy was really a fraud. He had lost all his face. "Zhang Haoyan, you're too shabby. You're an alchemist after all. Do you want me to lend you some?" At this moment, Shuiyang walked in with a man and a woman. Fatso frowned and said in a low voice, "Boss, he's Shuiyang. The other 2 are also core disciples of the Danwang Hall. The man is Xiafang, and the woman is Wang Xia." Qin Feiyang said, "I know he's Shuiyang. I've seen him in the treasure pavilion before." Shuiyang glanced at them, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said playfully, "How about it? Do you want it? I don't charge interest." Shizheng walked up and said lightly, "Isn't it just 250,000 gold coins? I'll give it to you." A cold light flashed in the depths of Shuiyang's eyes. He looked at the fat boss and said, "No matter what Zhang Haotian buys, I'll take it all and give you double the price." This. The fat boss was a little embarrassed. He didn't dare to offend Qin Feiyang. Shuiyang was Jia Hei's personal disciple. He also didn't dare to offend him. He begged, "Young Master Shui, if you have any grudges with young Master Jiang, can you settle it elsewhere? I'm just a small businessman. Don't make things difficult for me, okay?" "Why? Do you have a big objection?" Shuiyang's eyes were unfriendly. No, how would I dare to have an objection?" The fat boss hurriedly waved his hand and looked at Qin Feiyang pleadingly. He hoped that Qin Feiyang could take a step back. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and said, "It seems that the lesson I taught you last time wasn't deep enough." At the mention of this, Shuiyang's face became incomparably ferocious. Qin Feiyang turned a blind eye and said lightly, "You want whatever I want. Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Shuiyang said word by word. His heart was already occupied by hatred. "Fine, you're awesome." Qin Feiyang gave a thumbs up and turned to look at the fat boss, saying, "I want everything you have here. Listen well, everything." "Ah." The fat boss was dumbfounded. "This is a great move." Shizheng praised. This way, not only could he help the fat boss out of the predicament, but he could also ruthlessly scam Shuiyang. It could be said to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Shuiyang clenched his fists, his gaze frighteningly gloomy. "Yo!" Fatso let out a strange cry and joked. Young Master Shui, why aren't you saying anything? Fat Lord. Let me remind you that you're Jia Hei's disciple. If you don't keep your word, you won't be the only one losing face, but your master will too. Shui Yang said sternly. Fatso, say one more word and I'll cripple you. Come, come, come. If you don't cripple me today, you'll be Fat Lord's great-grandson. Fatso took a step forward and provoked arrogantly. You're courting death. Shui Yang's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. But just as he raised his hand, it was grabbed by Xiafang, who shook his head and said, Brother Shui, don't be provoked by him. Wang Xia nodded and said, the palace is just next door. If you fight here, even Elder Jia won't be able to save you. It won't hurt to endure it for a while. Fatso immediately gave the two of them a thumbs up and chuckled, I'll give you a thumbs up. Xiafang and Wang Xia raised their eyebrows and a cold light flashed in their eyes. Boring. Fatso waved his hand in disdain and looked at Shui Yang. They're right. Just endure it. You're just a coward anyway. Xiafang frowned and said, Fatso, don't go overboard. Fatso shouted, Fat Lord thought you were very smart. So you're an idiot too. Do you want to stand up for him? Xiafang said, if you're so capable, let's meet in the competition. Don't just talk here. Fatso sized him up and said, I'm sorry, Fat Lord's motto has always been to avoid violence if he can talk. After some thought, he added, besides, you can't even win against him in words. What right do you have to fight with Fat Lord? Go take a piss and look at your reflection. Xiafang's eyes were burning with anger. This damned Fatso's mouth really needs to be taught a lesson. Seeing that Xiafang was also enraged, Wang Xia's pupils constricted and she hurriedly dragged the two of them outside. Fatso twisted his neck and said indifferently, people with low IQ shouldn't come out for a stroll, lest they embarrass themselves. Bastard! I'm going to destroy you. Shui Yang and Xiafang roared at the same time and turned to charge at Fatso. Even Wang Xia couldn't hold them back. Stop! At this moment, a cold shout sounded. The eldest prince and Lin Hao walked in one after another. The main character is here. Fatso tactfully retreated to Qin Feiyang's side. The eldest prince coldly glanced at Shui Yang and the other two and said angrily, What's going on? How dare you fight here? Do you want to die? Keep pretending, keep pretending. Fatso sneered. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Shui Yang and the other two were ordered by someone. And the person who ordered them was undoubtedly the eldest prince. Shui Yang glared at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, Your Highness, it's all their fault for provoking us first, especially that Fatso. He's so arrogant and even humiliated you, Your Highness. The eldest prince turned to look at Fatso with a cold gaze. Shizheng frowned and said expressionlessly, Think before you speak. Shui Yang said angrily, Elder Shi, you're with them. Of course you'll speak for them. Bastard! Shizheng was furious. He stepped forward and grabbed Shui Yang's arm, saying, I'll take you to the Danwang Hall now. I'd like to ask Elder Jia how he educates his disciples. Shui Yang's face immediately turned pale. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, Your Highness, how do you plan to deal with the troublemakers? If you don't deal with them, I'm afraid your reputation as the eldest prince will be ruined today. The eldest prince was furious to the extreme. He wanted to use this as a pretext to make a fuss and frustrate Qin Feiyang, but he didn't expect that he would end up digging his own grave, because if this matter really blew up, they would be the ones to suffer. After all, the boss of this shop had witnessed the entire process. Although he could threaten the fat boss, Qin Feiyang and the others also had the Martial Imperial Hall behind them. Therefore, the fat boss would definitely tell the truth in the end. Slap! The eldest prince slapped Shui Yang's face without hesitation. A bright red palm print instantly appeared. Shui Yang was stunned. But the eldest prince didn't care about him. He looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. Brother Jiang, are you satisfied? What do you think? Qin Feiyang asked. Slap! The eldest prince slapped Xiafang and Wang Xia again and asked with a smile, What about now? Qin Feiyang smiled. Your Highness is selfless. I admire you. The eldest prince said, That's what I should do. I wonder why Brother Jiang came to the East District. If I can help, please feel free to ask. If I really need Your Highness' help, I will definitely not be polite. Qin Feiyang smiled and turned to the fat boss, asking, Boss, is it done? It's done. The fat boss pushed an exquisite wooden box in front of Qin Feiyang with a trace of gratitude in his eyes. Shizheng let go of Shuiyang and went over to settle the bill. He looked at Shuiyang and said, "Young people should learn to be good. Don't just sow discord all day. It won't do you any good in the future." Elder Shi is right. The eldest prince smiled and shouted at Shuiyang and the others, "Why aren't you apologizing to Elder Shi? Elder Shi, I'm sorry. Elder Shi, please forgive me for my previous offense." The three of them bowed. Shizheng said, "Forget it, this matter is over. Thank you for your magnanimity, Elder Shi." Chapter 183. Fighting with us is simply looking for a beating. Fatso laughed gloatingly. "Let's go." Qin Feiyang put away the wooden box, nodded and smiled at the eldest prince, then called Fatso and the other two and strode out of the jewelry shop. "Let's go too." The eldest prince waved his hand. After the two groups of people left, the fat boss breathed a sigh of relief. Shuiyang rubbed his burning face and stared at Qin Feiyang and the others in front of him, his eyes filled with hostility. The eldest prince sighed and said, "I had no choice but to hit you just now. Please forgive me." "It's okay." Shuiyang and the other two shook their heads. The eldest prince whispered, "Don't worry, I will definitely avenge you in the competition." Xiafang sneered and said, "If they participate in the competition, you don't need to show up. I can beat them." Wang Xia nodded and said, "Yes, it is said that Zhang Haotian is only an 8-star martial master. There is nothing to worry about." The eldest prince looked at the two of them in surprise and said with a smile, "If you can really do it, I will reward each of you with a top-grade red fireglass pill." "Thank you, Your Highness." The two of them were overjoyed and hurriedly bowed to thank him. The eldest prince nodded and caught up with Qin Feiyang in a few steps. He smiled and said, "Brother Jiang, I wonder if my top-grade red fireglass pill is ready?" "Oh." Qin Feiyang patted his head and said in distress, "Your Highness, I'm really sorry. I've been too busy these days and forgot about it. When I go back, I'll immediately start refining pills." The eldest prince raised his eyebrows and waved his hand and said with a smile, "It's okay, as long as you give it to me before I get married." Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "It definitely won't delay Your Highness's marriage." Right now, he only had a total of 6 top-grade red fireglass pills. If he gave it to the eldest prince, there would only be one left. To be honest, he really didn't want to give it to the eldest prince. But with his current strength, he couldn't swallow these 5 top-grade red fireglass pills. "Look, isn't that Luo Qingzhu?" Suddenly, Lin Hao pointed to the front, his eyes full of surprise. Everyone looked over. 2 white-clothed girls walked hand in hand in the crowd, forming a beautiful scene that attracted the gazes of countless men. "She's here too?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. One of them was indeed Luo Qingzhu, and the girl beside her was Zhao Shuanger. "Little sister Qingzhu." The first prince's eyes lit up. He stretched out his hand and called out to her affectionately. Then he strode after her. Lin Hao, Shuiyang, and the other two quickly followed. "Sister Qingzhu?" Fatso was stunned and said angrily, "Boss, he actually dared to tease your wife. Even if he's the first prince, we can't tolerate it. Go and kill him." Qin Feiyang's face twitched and he gave Fatso a knock on the head. "Ouch!" Fatso howled in pain and said, "Boss, why did you hit Fat Lord? Is Fat Lord wrong?" Qin Feiyang said with a dark face, "I'll tell you again. Whether it's Lin Yi or Luo Qingzhu, our relationship is innocent. Explaining is tantamount to covering up." Fatso pursed his lips. Qin Feiyang's veins were bulging. He raised his head and wanted to knock on Fatso's head again. But when he saw Fatso's pitiful look, he couldn't do it. Shizheng said in surprise, "Zhang Haotian, do you know Luo Qingzhu? We've met a few times." Qin Feiyang nodded and said, "More than a few times. They are about to get married privately. I guess they will have a baby in a few years." Fatso murmured in a low voice. Ling Yunfei couldn't help but laugh. "This Fatso is too funny." Shizheng also couldn't help laughing. "I really owe you in my previous life." Qin Feiyang glared at Fatso. He also felt powerless against this bastard. In front, the first prince laughed. "Little sister Qingzhu, why are you here?" Who is this beautiful lady? Luo Qingzhu smiled faintly. She is a core disciple of the martial imperial palace in Star Moon City, called Zhao Shuang. We are only here to play in Yen City, and just happened to hear that you were holding a competition, so we came over to take a look out of curiosity. She then looked at Zhao Shuang and introduced him. Little sister Shuang. He is the first prince that I mentioned to you before. Shuang greets the first prince. Zhao Shuang bowed. The first prince waved his hand and laughed. Miss Shuang, we are all on the same side. There is no need to be so polite. However, the first prince did not notice that although Luo Qingzhu and Luo Qingzhu were talking to him, their gazes would occasionally sweep towards Qin Feiyang, who was behind them. Qin Feiyang walked over with a faint smile on his face. But suddenly, Lin Hao stood in front of him and said disdainfully, "Do you know who she is? Don't try to claim connections." Qin Feiyang was stunned. Luo Qingzhu and Luo Qingzhu were also stunned. Whoosh! A figure swept past the two of them and ran in front of Luo Qingzhu. It was Fatso. He looked at Luo Qingzhu with a fawning smile and said, "Sister-in-law, you're finally here. You don't know how much boss misses you. He misses you every day, bastard. Have you had enough?" Qin Feiyang angrily roared and went forward to kick him. Fatso hid behind Luo Qingzhu like a wisp of smoke and made a face at him. "Sister-in-law?" Everyone present was stunned, including the surrounding pedestrians. Luo Qingzhu and Zhao Shuang were the same. Qin Feiyang glared at Fatso, looked at Luo Qingzhu apologetically, and laughed. "I'm sorry, he likes to mess around." It's fine, it's fine." Luo Qingzhu shook her head, still unable to react. "Messing around?" The first prince frowned. It should be. Luo Qingzhu had been in Star Moon City all year round. How could she know Zhang Haotian? It was even more impossible for them to have such an ambiguous relationship. He smiled and said, "Little sister Qingzhu, let me introduce you. He is the famous Zhang Haotian." This relationship is a bit complicated. Zhao Shuang looked at the first prince and the others, and a strange light flashed in her beautiful eyes. Then, she looked at Zhang Haotian and said with a playful smile, "Long time no see. I heard that you're doing well here, so I discussed with Sister Qingzhu and came to find you to eat and drink. Do you welcome us?" "Of course you're welcome." Qin Feiyang laughed. The first prince raised his eyebrows and asked, "Little sister Qingzhu, do you know each other?" Luo Qingzhu finally came back to her senses and nodded. "We've known each other for a long time." That moment, the first prince's expression changed. After all this time, it was just his wishful thinking. Especially Lin Hao, it was as if he had been slapped hard in the face. His face was burning hot. The two of them had known each other for a long time, and their relationship was not shallow. However, he had stood in front of the other party and told the other party not to claim any relationship. This was really ironic. The atmosphere here was a bit awkward. Luo Qingzhu looked at the two groups of people and roughly understood what was going on. She asked, "Your Highness, I wonder if I can participate in the competition?" The first prince was stunned and asked doubtfully, "Why do you want to participate? If you want something, just ask me directly." Luo Qingzhu said with a faint smile, "We've known each other for so long, don't you understand me? I like to rely on my own efforts to fight for it." The first prince hesitated for a moment and nodded. "All right, I'll take you to sign up." "Brother Zhang, what about you? Are you interested? The rewards this time are very rich." Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Since that's the case, I'll give it a try." The first prince and the others were overjoyed. The previous unhappiness was instantly thrown to the back of their minds. They couldn't wait to lead the few people to the square. On the left side of the square there was a hall. A group of people walked in. In addition to Qin Feiyang, Ling Yunfei, Luo Qingzhu, and Zhao Shuang had also signed up. As for Fatso, no matter how Xiefeng provoked him, he had an extremely contemptuous expression. Xiefeng was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Walking out of the hall, Qin Feiyang stood on a step and asked, "Your Highness, when will it start?" The first prince said with a smile, "It can start at any time." But in his heart he sneered. "I'm waiting for you," Qin Feiyang said. "Then hurry up. After all, I'm very busy and don't have time to delay here." "All right." The first prince nodded and shouted, "Commander Su, Immediately arrange for the elimination round to begin immediately. Yes. A loud and clear voice sounded. Following closely. A burly man in armor walked out of the main hall with a bold and resolute manner. He jumped a few times and landed on a high platform in front of the square. He shouted, "The elimination round is about to begin. Participants, enter the square immediately." That moment, one by one the teenagers ran into the square. Those who didn't participate quickly left the square. At the same time, from the gate of the palace, a large group of black armored guards emerged. They were like a group of lions. They quickly dispersed and stood at the edge of the square, expressionlessly scanning the crowd below. Zhang Haoyan, Ling Yunfei, be careful. Shizheng warned and also left the square with Fatso. Let's go. Qin Feiyang walked down the steps and entered the square. Ling Yunfei followed closely. Luo Qingzhu and Zhao Shuang'er nodded to the first prince and also entered the square, standing in the crowd. The first prince glanced at Qin Feiyang and warned Wang Xia and Xiafang, "Don't touch him first. On the day of the finals we'll ruthlessly trample on him. But we can test his depth first. As for the trash next to him, get him out of the arena as soon as possible." He was referring to Ling Yunfei. Understood. Xiafang and Luo Qingzhu nodded, a cold light flashing in their eyes. Subsequently, Shuiyang and Lin Hao followed behind the first prince and walked up the high platform. The square suddenly quieted down. The first prince stood in the middle of the high platform and glanced at the crowd below. His robe fluttered in the wind, and his whole body emitted the aura of a king. There are a total of more than 1,300 people participating in this competition, but only 10 people can enter the finals. So everyone must work hard. I also ask everyone to stop before it's too late, and try not to do anything to hurt the other party. I believe everyone already knows the prizes of this competition. I won't explain more, just say one thing. In the elimination round, no weapons are allowed. Those who violate this rule will be disqualified. Finished. He retreated to the side with his hands behind his back. Looking at Qin Feiyang in the crowd, he secretly sneered. "Without that dagger, I want to see what big waves you can make." Commander Su took a few steps forward and shouted, "Are you all ready?" "We're ready." Thousands of teenagers roared as if they had been injected with chicken blood. For Qin Feiyang, the royal banquet didn't have the slightest attraction. But for the vast majority of people, being able to participate in the royal banquet was a supreme honor. Chapter 184. Let the elimination round begin. Following Commander Su's words, everyone exerted all their strength and attacked the people around them. Bang bang bang. Ah! Someone won. Someone was bound to be defeated. In an instant there were endless screams. One by one the teenagers fell down. Almost in the blink of an eye, half of the people were eliminated. The battle was cruel. Especially in this kind of chaotic battle, if one was not careful, one would be attacked and lose the qualification to continue. At the same time, Qin Feiyang was also besieged. Ling Yunfei fought against dozens of people and had the upper hand. Qin Feiyang did not make a move from beginning to end. He stood in the field and glanced at the chaotic crowd. His eyes were as calm as water. "How dare you be so arrogant in this chaotic battle? You're courting death." When a tall and sturdy man noticed Qin Feiyang, his eyes immediately flashed with a ruthless look. Seeing that Ling Yunfei was more than 10 meters away and was entangled by two people, he took a step forward and charged towards Qin Feiyang. However, without waiting for him to get close, Ling Yunfei appeared in front of him like a flash of lightning. With a palm strike, the afterimages of 9 huge palms struck towards him, covering the sky and the earth. It was the illusion palm. As soon as Ling Yunfei entered the martial imperial palace, he became a core disciple and had already learned the illusion palm. How is this possible? The burly man's face was filled with disbelief. Previously, he was entangled by others, but in an instant, he rushed over. This speed was too fast. With your little ability, you dared to sneak attack him. Ling Yunfei's eyes were filled with disdain as his palm landed on the burly man's chest. Ah! The burly man screamed and was blown away on the spot, spitting out blood. The few unlucky ones behind him were also seriously injured and fell to the ground. Cripple him. A group of teenagers suddenly swarmed towards Ling Yunfei. Cripple me? Since that's the case, don't blame me for being ruthless. Ling Yunfei smiled coldly and punched out with his heart-lock-killing fist. A teenager's heart was shattered and he fell to the ground dead. What? Dead? The others trembled both physically and mentally as their faces turned ghastly pale. The battlefield needs to be watered with blood. Stop when it's appropriate? That's all bullshit. Ling Yunfei's long sky-blue hair danced behind his head like a waterfall, and his entire body emitted an astonishing aura. Using the origin convergence steps, he was like a hungry wolf that had charged into a flock of sheep. For a moment, this place was in complete chaos. Without exception, those who were struck by him were either killed or injured. His entire body was covered in blood, like a blood-soaked azura. The people around him were scared out of their wits and fled in panic. On the high platform, the eldest prince's shock was clearly written on his face. All this time, he had never taken Ling Yunfei seriously, and had only regarded him as a small fry. But he never thought that he would be so strong. It was also at this moment. Qin Feiyang, who hadn't moved for a long time, shook his head and said, "That's all." Previously, he was observing everyone's strength. He wanted to see what kind of opponent the first prince had prepared for him. In the end, he was greatly disappointed. There were more than 1,300 people, and none of them was a martial grandmaster. The highest was a 9-star martial master. Even the number of 9-star martial masters could be counted on one hand. But thinking about it, it made sense. In a small place like the county of Yan, it was rare for someone to step into the martial grandmaster realm before the age of 18. Only a martial arts genius like Feng Ling could do it. An elimination round without a martial grandmaster was nothing to worry about. It seems that I don't need to take part in this battle. Glancing at Ling Yunfei, Qin Feiyang muttered and turned to look at Luo Qingzhu and Zhao Shuangshuang. His face couldn't help but twitch. Luo Qingzhu and Zhao Shuangshuang stood there motionless, but the people around them acted as if they didn't see anything. No one attacked them. Qin Feiyang was filled with emotions. Beautiful women were treated differently. But he also knew that the biggest reason was Luo Qingzhu's identity. Who would dare to touch the precious daughter of the Precious Treasure Pavilion's pavilion master? Once one was blacklisted by the Precious Treasure Pavilion, it would be worse than being blacklisted by the Danwang Hall, the Martial Imperial Hall, or the royal family. Because as long as one was a martial artist, they needed wealth and resources. The Precious Treasure Pavilion was undoubtedly the source of wealth and resources. Zhang Haoyan, fight me if you dare. Suddenly, a loud and cold shout rang out. A purple-clothed youth appeared extremely valiant as he walked towards Qin Feiyang as if there was no one around him. Hiding behind Ling Yunfei, what kind of man are you? If you think that you can enter the finals like this, I can tell you very seriously, dream on. At the same time, there were also 3 youths in luxurious clothes. They were like 3 human-shaped tyrannosauruses. They continuously sent people in front of them flying, emitting a strong aura as they pressed towards Qin Feiyang. Their gazes were extremely sharp. Qin Feiyang was stunned and turned his head to look at them one by one. The 4 of them looked slightly mature. They were obviously almost 18 years old and had the strength of a 9-star martial master. In Yan City, they could be considered top geniuses. Seeing this, Zhao Shuang smiled playfully. Zhang Haoyan, do you need help? What do you think? Qin Feiyang grinned. You are still so arrogant. Zhao Shuang rolled her eyes at him. But this kind of man was more charming. Humph! Ling Yunfei snorted and quickly came in front of Qin Feiyang. He glanced at the 4 people and said disdainfully, just 4 trash. You don't need to do anything. I will handle it. Arrogant. The cold light in the eyes of the 4 people surged. Ling Yunfei, arrogance will pay the price. We will fight with you. At this time, Xie Feng and Wang Xia rushed out of the crowd, stepping on the shoulders of the crowd and rushing over. Ling Yunfei said, "It seems that these people have been bribed by the first prince." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, as expected. Not only them, those who just attacked us probably got a lot of benefits. In that case, we don't need to be merciful. Ling Yunfei sneered. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. It seemed that this guy had never been merciful, right? He asked, "Your strength seems to have become stronger? I forgot to tell you. Yesterday I stepped into the 9-star martial master and finally surpassed you." Ling Yunfei smiled proudly. Surpassed? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The corner of his mouth pursed into a playful smile. He chuckled and said, "Let me tell you a secret. Before I went to Black Bear City, I was already a 9-star martial master." What? Ling Yunfei was dumbfounded. His heart was instantly filled with loss. Surpassing Qin Feiyang had always been his wish. He thought that he had done it this time, but he didn't expect that the other party was still one step ahead of him. This feeling was really unbearable. "If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Suddenly, he let out a low roar. His heart was filled with unwillingness and disappointment. It turned into a monstrous battle intent and welcomed the two of them. Although he couldn't compare to Qin Feiyang, he was determined to be the number one person under Qin Feiyang. What Xie Fang? What Wang Xia? Trample them all under his feet. Bang! Bang! The three of them fought crazily. When the others saw this, they retreated one after another, giving them a wide battlefield. They are both 9-star martial masters, but this child is facing two opponents alone. His expression doesn't change at all. His battle intent is endless. This Ling Yunfei is very likely to become the second Fengling heir. He entered the martial ancestor realm before the age of 18, the future proud son of Yan County. The crowd below the stage discussed in low voices, their eyes filled with shock. Shi Zheng was also very surprised. He only knew that Ling Yunfei's talent was not bad, and that he had a good relationship with Zhang Haotian. But he didn't expect his talent to be so heaven-defying. He had been in the Martial Imperial Hall for less than a year, and he already had such strength. He might even surpass Fengling heir in the future. Zhao Shuanger walked to Qin Feiyang and asked curiously, "Where did you find this helper?" Luo Qingzhu said, "He is from the Ling family of Black Bear City. When I went to Black Bear City, I heard that he was called Trash. But now it seems that he doesn't live up to his name. If the Ling family had nurtured him since he was young, his achievements wouldn't be limited to this." Qin Feiyang shook his head and ridiculed. The Ling family probably didn't realize how valuable Ling Yunfei was until they were destroyed. With his talent and potential, even in the imperial capital, he was a top martial arts genius. Even Fengling heir couldn't compare to him. Luo Qingzhu turned to look at Qin Feiyang, a strange light flashing in her beautiful eyes. If she didn't meet this person, Ling Yunfei would still be the trash in Black Bear City. He wouldn't have the chance to shine here today. It could be said that this person was Ling Yunfei's talent scout. But she was very curious. Ling Yunfei had lived in Black Bear City for more than 10 years, and no one had discovered his potential. But how did this person find it at a glance? Was it because he was very good at judging people? Or was it because he had seen too many geniuses? This time, the four well-dressed youths surrounded him. Glancing at Luo Qingzhu and Zhao Shuanger, one of them said coldly, "Get out of the way." "Okay." Zhao Shuanger nodded and pulled Luo Qingzhu to the side. After a year, how much had this guy grown? She was really looking forward to it. The four people spread out and each took a side, surrounding Qin Feiyang in the center. The youth in purple sneered, "Zhang Haotian, this young master wants to know if your strength can compare to your alchemy skills. I don't think I will disappoint you." Qin Feiyang put his hands behind his back, with a faint smile on his face. "Return to origin palm." The young master in purple looked cold and suddenly waved his palm, blowing a hurricane. When it blew on his face, there was a pain of skin tearing. This palm, it was really amazing. It had the strength of 13 brute elephants. The Lin family? Qin Feiyang was surprised. He didn't expect that the Lin family was hiding such a genius. Swish. He took a step back, his clothes rustling, and his expression was as calm as water. Illusion palm. Seeing this, the youth behind Qin Feiyang didn't hesitate to slap. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and stepped on the ground, moving to the left. He calmly turned around and looked at that person suspiciously. "Don't say that I'm a traitor. Because you're not a disciple of the Martial Imperial Palace, I don't need to help you. And because you're the biggest threat, I can only join hands with them to eliminate you first." Chapter 185. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's brows also relaxed. This person was 100% bought by the first prince, but he was too lazy to point it out. He was too lazy to talk nonsense. Overlord Fist. The other two youths also attacked Qin Feiyang. Fatso reminded Boss, be careful. The Overlord Fist is the perfect martial skill of the royal family. It is said to be very fierce. Commander Su frowned and shouted, the people outside are not allowed to interrupt. TSK. Fatso disdainfully raised his middle finger. Commander Su's veins were bulging. The commander of the royal guards was actually humiliated by a brat in public. He was really angry. Fatso, behave. Shizhou scolded in a low voice, then looked at Commander Su and smiled apologetically. Humph. Commander Su snorted and continued to scan the battlefield. He secretly despised him for doing such an indecent action in public. He really couldn't understand why the Martial Imperial Hall would take in such an uncultured person. On the field, when the two youths of the royal family attacked, the two youths of the Lin family and the Martial Imperial Hall immediately surrounded him. The Overlord Fist was incomparably fierce. The Illusion Palm was mysterious and unpredictable. The Return to Origin Palm was incomparably fierce. For 9-star martial masters, 3 perfect martial skills, and their true chi covered the sky and earth, almost cutting off all of Qin Feiyang's escape routes. The first prince and the other two on the high platform couldn't help but smile. Although it was just to test Qin Feiyang's strength, if he could make a fool of himself in front of everyone, it was still something to be happy about. Zhao Shuang frowned and said in a low voice, let's go help him. Luo Qingzhu nodded and suddenly grabbed Zhao Shuang and said, look at his expression. Expression? Zhao Shuang was stunned. She looked at Qin Feiyang's face and suddenly felt surprised. At this moment, Qin Feiyang's expression didn't have the slightest bit of panic. He was still so calm and relaxed. Where is his confidence? Zhao Shuang was suspicious. If it was someone else facing the siege of the 4 youths, they would have been scared witless. However, this fellow didn't seem to take it to heart. In the blink of an eye, the 4 of them had ominous glints in their eyes. They were only half a step away from Qin Feiyang. He was about to be beaten up. Whoosh! At this moment, Qin Feiyang took a step forward, and with a strange speed, he passed by the 2 young men from the Martial Emperor Hall and the royal family, leaving the encirclement. That's right. His confidence comes from his auxiliary martial skills. Zhao Shuang's eyes lit up. How could this be? However, the 4 people's expressions suddenly changed. He quickly retracted his hand, but it was too late. The fist and the palm collided with each other. Their faces paled as their arms broke on the spot. In the meantime, like 4 meteorites, they flew out horizontally. Accompanied by a series of banging sounds, it smashed onto the ground more than 10 meters away. Puff! Immediately, a gush of hot blood rushed up to his throat, and he violently spat it out. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. There were even some people whose eyeballs were about to pop out of their sockets. Dead silence. They all thought that this time, Qin Feiyang would lose a layer of skin even if he did not die. But in the end, not only did he dodge it easily, but he also seriously injured the 4 of them without any effort. Even during the entire process, he had his hands behind his back. Everyone could only see calmness, composure and confidence from him. The smiles on the faces of the eldest prince, Shuiyang and Lin Hao, also froze. For 9-star martial masters were injured just like that? This was too ridiculous. One had to know that Qin Feiyang had not even made a move yet. Ah! At this moment, 2 more screams were heard. Everyone looked over and was stunned once again. Xie Feng and Wang Xia were both defeated by Ling Yunfei. The 2 of them were lying on the ground, their faces as pale as paper. Their bodies were twitching non-stop, and their mouths were foaming with blood. On the other hand, although Ling Yunfei was also injured, his eyes were like torches, and his spirit was hale and hearty. His fighting spirit was even stronger than before. Why did this happen? The eldest prince clenched his hands tightly together, his face gloomy to the extreme. Xie Feng and Wang Xia stood up and stared at Ling Yunfei with eyes full of disbelief. The same cultivation level. The same perfect martial skill. But why were the 2 of them still defeated by Ling Yunfei even when they joined hands? Ling Yunfei looked at the two of them with contempt, turned around and walked to Qin Feiyang, and said with an evil smile, "How is it?" "Amazing." Qin Feiyang gave him a thumbs up. Ling Yunfei twisted his arm and chuckled, "I haven't had enough fun yet. Don't make a move next. I alone am enough to deal with them." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, "Didn't you see? I haven't made a move yet." Ugh! Ling Yunfei was stunned. Looking at Qin Feiyang's hands behind his back, he immediately laughed out loud. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. In such a chaotic battlefield, the two of them still had the mood to talk and laugh there. It was enough to see how confident they were in themselves, and how disdainful they were to the other contestants. It was as if in their eyes this competition was just a boring game. The eldest prince and the other two on the high platform, Xie Feng and the other 5 on the field, were all red in the face. Because Ling Yunfei's laughter was too ear-piercing. It was simply mocking their incompetence. Xie Feng and the other 5 looked at each other from a distance, and at the same time, they took out a supreme-grade healing pill and a bone-replenishing pill and consumed it. A shocking cold light flashed in their eyes. Fatso cried out. Some people fought with Zhang Laoda, and in the end they even took the pills refined by Zhang Laoda. Isn't this embarrassing? Fat Lord thinks that he is already very shameless, but I didn't expect that there would be someone more shameless than Fat Lord. No, it should be called despicable. In front of countless people, Fatso ridiculed without restraint, and his saliva splattered everywhere. Xie Feng and the other 5 looked at him in unison, and their eyes were filled with murderous intent. Commander Su also looked at Fatso and said gloomily, "I've already said that the people outside the field are not allowed to interrupt. Did you forget? Do you want me to teach you a lesson?" "Lord Commander, you're in the wrong here. Did you hear Fat Lord mention names? Fat Lord is talking about some people. It could be him or it could be him. How can you be so sure that Fat Lord is talking about the people on the field? Sir Commander, you represent the royal family. Is it really okay to make things out of nothing and slander others?" Fatso said earnestly. "I made things out of nothing. I slandered others." Commander Su was stunned when he heard it. When he came to his senses, a strong anger suddenly rose from his body. Fatso shrunk his neck and hid behind Shizheng. He stuck his head out and said with a trembling voice, "Sir Commander, Fat Lord is just talking about the facts. Don't bully others with your power." "Damn Fatso, get over here and accept your death." Commander Su was seething with anger. "Bullying the weak, what kind of man are you?" Fatso said angrily. This time, on the contrary, Fatso became the focus of everyone's attention. Even those teenagers who were fighting on the field stopped and looked at Fatso speechlessly. How could there be such a person in the world? Commander Su clenched his hands and his whole body was trembling with anger. "I can't take it anymore." Suddenly, he let out an angry roar and jumped down from the high platform. Then, he rushed towards the fatty with a ferocious aura. "Look, the palace commander is bullying others. The face of the royal family has been lost by him." Fatso hurriedly shouted. The eldest prince shouted, "Commander Su, come back." However, Commander Su turned a deaf ear to him. He only had eyes for Fatso and wanted to cut him into pieces. "I told you to come back, didn't you hear me?" The eldest prince shouted. Commander Su quivered and suddenly came back to his senses. That moment, his whole body was dripping with cold sweat. He secretly cursed, how could he be so stupid? If he really made a move here, then he would be knowingly breaking the law, which would add to his crime. This damned fat pig really had sinister intentions. Phew. He let out a long breath, turned around and jumped onto the high platform, bowed and said, "I was confused for a moment, please forgive me, Your Highness." The eldest prince waved his hand and said, "Step aside." "Yes." Commander Su responded respectfully and retreated behind the eldest prince. He raised his head and looked at Fatso. The murderous intent in his eyes was not concealed at all. "Count yourself lucky." Fatso snorted coldly. Don't think that he was really fooling around, in fact he was very smart. The eldest prince took a step forward and coldly glanced at the square below. More than 1,300 people until now, only 50 or 60 people were left. Except for Qin Feiyang, Luo Qianxue and Zhao Shuang'er, the others were all injured. He silently calculated in his heart and shouted, "Continue." At the same time, He gave a look to Xiafang and the others. The battle immediately began. But Xiafang and the others did not deal with Qin Feiyang and Ling Yunfei anymore. Like hungry tigers pouncing on sheep, they rushed to kill the others. What's going on? Ling Yunfei was a little stunned. Isn't it because we're afraid of you? Luo Qingzhu and Zhao Shuang'er walked over with a faint smile on their faces. Afraid of us? Ling Yunfei was slightly stunned, and then suddenly understood, and said with an evil smile, "It's normal to be afraid of us." Normal? Luo Qingzhu and Zhao Shuang'er were a little speechless. This person was really narcissistic. These kind of pampered young masters and young ladies will not understand the taste of people like us who crawled out from a pile of corpses. Ling Yunfei coldly laughed. That's true. Zhao Shuang'er nodded. One was pampered since childhood. The other lived on the edge of life and death since childhood. The difference between the two was not just a little. Especially the temperament and the state of the battle. While the four were chatting, Xiafang and the others soon eliminated the rest of the participants. Although they were not the opponents of Qin Feiyang and Luo Qianxue, but to deal with the other youths they could completely crush them. At this point, on the bloodstained square, only Qin Feiyang and the others were left. The eldest prince walked to the edge of the high platform and glanced at the 10 people. His gaze locked onto Ling Yunfei, and he coldly said, "Your right to participate in the competition is revoked." Revoked? Ling Yunfei frowned and asked, "Why?" The eldest prince said, "I already said that you should stop when the time is right, but you ignored my order and deliberately harmed people's lives. Shouldn't you be disqualified? If I don't revoke your right, how can I convince the others?" Xiafang and the others immediately laughed at his misfortune. What a joke. Qin Feiyang suddenly sneered, and walked in front of Ling Yunfei, looked up at the eldest prince and said lightly, "Your Highness, think about it again. What did you say?" Chapter 186. You can't remember? Then let me remind you. You said that everyone should stop when it's appropriate and try not to harm each other's lives. Your Highness, do you need me to explain the meaning of, try not to harm each other? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, but there was a hint of mockery at the corner of his mouth. Fatso, who was outside the arena, could not help but nod and say, "That's right. You didn't say that we had to stop when it's appropriate. What right do you have to disqualify Ling Yunfei?" He added, "Is it because you're the first prince?" There was a cold glint in the first prince's eyes as he said faintly, "You're right, but you can't kill people as you wish." As you wish? I don't agree with that. When those people said that they were going to cripple Ling Yunfei, why didn't you jump out and disqualify them? If your Highness thinks that this is a competition organized by you and that you can do whatever you want, then I don't think there's any need for this competition to continue. Your Highness, it seems that I've offended you. Ling Yunfei, let's go. We've had enough fun. It's time to go back. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and walked out of the arena without hesitation. Ling Yunfei shook his head and laughed mockingly, then followed him out. Looking at the backs of the two, the first prince's face was almost distorted. "All right, just pretend that I didn't say anything. Gather here 8 days later in the morning. Those who are late will be disqualified immediately," he said coldly, then turned and whispered a few words in Shui Yang's ear. Then, he led Lin Hao into the palace. It was obvious that he was extremely angry now. Clowns. Qin Feiyang sneered inwardly. He stopped and turned to look at the palace gate, his eyes flickering. Zhao Shuang'er followed Qin Feiyang's gaze and patted him on the shoulder in annoyance. She said unhappily, "What are you looking at? We came all the way here to find you. Are you going to leave us here?" "Find me?" Qin Feiyang was taken aback. He turned his head and looked at the two women in surprise. "What do you think? We don't have the time to visit Yin City." Zhao Shuang'er rolled her eyes at him. "Then why are you here?" Qin Feiyang looked at them in confusion, then chuckled and said, "Could it be that you missed me so much that you came to throw yourself into my arms? I'm a little flattered." The two women looked at each other and gritted their teeth as they looked at him. Ling Yunfei's face twitched uncontrollably. She didn't expect this fellow to have such an indecent side. Cough cough. Qin Feiyang coughed and smiled. "Just a joke. Don't take it seriously." You really haven't changed at all. You're still the same bastard. Luo Qianxue rolled her eyes at him and said calmly, actually, it was mother who sent me and sister Shuang to testify for you. And Shui? Qin Feiyang was stunned. A string in his heart was touched, and he couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. At this moment, Shuiyang walked over and cupped his hands with a smile. Miss Qingzhu, the first prince invites you to the palace for a chat. And this is Miss Shuang. Luo Qingzhu frowned and said apologetically, I'm sorry. Please tell him that I still have some private matters to deal with. I'll go and talk to him another day. Shuiyang glanced at Qin Feiyang and smiled. Okay, I'll tell him the truth. Luo Qingzhu tugged at Qin Feiyang's sleeve. After Qin Feiyang came back to his senses, he glanced at Shuiyang and turned to walk toward Fatso and Shizheng. Ling Yunfei, Luo Qingzhu, and Zhao Shuanger quickly followed. Boss. Fatso came up and said flatteringly, are you satisfied with Fat Lord's performance just now? Very satisfied. Keep it up. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile. Ling Yunfei put his arm around Fatso's shoulder and said with admiration, Brother Fatty, I'm not convinced of anything but your mouth. It's too sharp and too awesome. I'm afraid that no one in Yen City will dare to provoke you in the future. Of course, Fat Lord's mouth is tempered thousands of times. If anyone is not convinced, come and fight. Fatso strode forward with his head held high and glanced at the crowd below the square. He had the attitude of a master of words. At this moment, a large number of people fled. See, Fat Lord is not to be trifled with. Fatso looked at Qin Feiyang and the others proudly. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. The people who were in the limelight today were undoubtedly Ling Yunfei and Fatso. Ling Yunfei would definitely become the brightest star in Yen City in the future. As for Fatso, although his strength was not great, his mouth alone was enough to make anyone tremble in fear. In their hearts, Fatso was probably one of the people who should not be offended. Suddenly, a group of people surrounded them. They stood in front of Qin Feiyang and the others. What do you want? Shizheng stood in front of Qin Feiyang and looked at them vigilantly. Elder Shi, don't misunderstand. We are here to thank young Master Jiang. An old man in front hurriedly said. Young Master Jiang, my father has been suffering from internal injuries all these years. Ordinary healing pills can't cure him at all. Seeing his body getting worse day by day, I thought there was no hope. But a few days ago I received a supreme healing pill from this fat brother. After taking it back and giving it to him, his internal injuries were healed. Young Master Jiang, you are my father's savior. Please accept my 3 bows. A middle-aged man in tattered clothes walked out of the crowd with tears in his eyes. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed. Qin Feiyang hurriedly ran down and helped him up. He smiled and said, Big brother, a word of thanks is enough. There is no need for such a big bow. It could be seen that this person's family was not well off. His strength was not strong. He belonged to the lowest class of people in Yen City. To Qin Feiyang, a peak-quality healing pellet was something he could easily refine. However, to this person it might be an extravagant hope. The middle-aged man was very excited and said, Young Master Jiang, in fact, we have wanted to thank you in person for a long time, but we never had the chance. Yes, you are too busy. Young Master Jiang, you are much better than those people from the famous families. You are so young but your heart is so kind. God will bless you. Yes, good people will definitely be rewarded. Everyone's face was full of grateful smiles. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Thank you everyone. I will continue to distribute pills to help more people. Young Master is so kind. The people of Yen City are blessed. Everyone was overjoyed. The middle-aged man said loudly, Everyone, quiet down and listen to me. Young Master Jiang is very busy. Let's not waste too much of his time. Yes. Everyone, move aside and let young Master Jiang pass. Take care, young master. Farewell, young Master Jiang. The people retreated to the side and bowed to send him off. This scene shook the hearts of everyone in the square. Commander Su Shuiyang, the black-armored guards, Shizheng, Luo Qingzhu, and Zhao Shuanger were all present. They did not expect the current Qin Feiyang to be so popular. He was afraid that as long as he said a word, half of the people in Yen City would stand on his side. After Qin Feiyang's group left, Shuiyang, Xiefang, and the others looked at each other and quickly turned to enter the palace. In a dazzling hall, the eldest prince sat on the golden throne with his head lowered and said nothing. His face was gloomy as water. Lin Hao stood on the left side of the throne. His face was also ashen. "Greetings, Your Highness." Shuiyang and the others walked into the hall and bowed. The eldest prince raised his head and looked at them, anger boiling in his heart. Shuiyang's heart trembled as he tactfully walked to Lin Hao's side. Xie Fang and the others did not dare to move. They lowered their heads, not daring to look directly at the eldest prince. "What a bunch of useless trash. You can't even force Zhang Haoyan to make a move. What can I expect from you?" The eldest prince's anger finally exploded as he pointed at the six and cursed. Xie Fang hurriedly said, "Your Highness, please listen to my explanation." "Explanation? You swore to me that you could kill Zhang Haoyan. But what happened in the end? You can't even kill Ling Yunfei. What else do you have to explain?" The eldest prince suddenly stood up and rushed to Xie Fang shouting. Xie Fang lowered his head again, his face pale. "And you? What did you say in front of me? Ling Yunfei is just a piece of trash, not worth mentioning. And now? Tell me, who is the trash?" The eldest prince glanced at Wang Xia and the others and sneered. Wang Xia and the others were even more ashamed. They also did not expect that this unknown person was actually so ridiculously strong. The eldest prince glanced coldly at the six and returned to the golden throne. He looked at Shuiyang and said, "Why isn't Luo Qingzhu here?" Shuiyang said, "She said that she has some private matters to deal with and will come to find you another day. But according to my observation, her so-called private matters might be about Zhang Haoyan." Smack! The eldest prince angrily slapped the armrest of the throne. Why was it that no matter where he was or who he met, it was always related to this bastard? There's one more thing. Now the people of Yan City have a good impression of Zhang Haoyan. Shuiyang recounted the scene he saw in the square in detail. So, he gave out free pills to please the people of Yan City? Lin Hao frowned. It can't be that simple. The eldest prince shook his head. Lin Hao and the others looked at the eldest prince in surprise. Why don't you think that as a peak-grade alchemist with the Martial Imperial Hall as his backing, does he need to please those ordinary people? Moreover, he doesn't seem like a charitable person. There must be some unspeakable secret. Shenchong, have you heard anything from the Martial Imperial Hall? The eldest prince looked at the disciple of the Martial Imperial Hall and asked. Shenchong thought for a moment and shook his head. "No. I even went to inquire about it, but even Fatso and Lu Hong, who are closest to Zhang Haoyan, don't know the reason." Even they don't know? The eldest prince and the others were in disbelief. "Your Highness, you don't have to worry about this matter. It doesn't matter if he has a purpose. I don't believe that ordinary people can threaten us." Shenchong said with disdain. "That's true." The eldest prince nodded and glanced at them. He waved his hand and said, "You guys go back first. I need to think about how to make Zhang Haoyan fall into eternal damnation in the finals." After thinking for a moment, he added, "Also, pay attention to Zhang Haoyan's whereabouts in the next few days." "Yes." Shuiyang and the others bowed in response before turning around and leaving with large strides. Only Lin Hao remained behind. Chapter 187. Flying Phoenix House. In a luxurious pavilion, Qin Feiyang and the others gathered together. Zhao Shuang looked at Qin Feiyang with a complicated expression and shook her head. "When I first met you, I really didn't expect you to be a top-grade alchemist." Qin Feiyang picked up his wine glass, sipped it gently, and said with a faint smile, "At that time, even I didn't know that I had talent in alchemy." Zhao Shuang said, "In short, your current achievements are really beyond my expectations." Qin Feiyang smiled and asked, "What about you? Is everything going well in Xingyue City?" "Quite well. At that time I passed the assessment very easily. In less than 2 months, I became a core disciple again. Of course, I have to thank Sister Qingzhu for giving me the qi gathering pill and letting me use the cultivation room. My cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. A few days ago, I took the top-grade red fire glass pill you gave me, and now I'm barely a 9-star martial master." Zhao Shuang smiled playfully. 9-star martial master. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other, their eyes full of disbelief. Zhao Shuang-er was about the same age as them. She had also broken through to 9-star martial master. How could these men endure it? You relied on your own efforts, and I relied on the guidance of the law enforcement elder. We can't be compared. Zhao Shuang-er said modestly. The law enforcement elder also gave me a lot of guidance. Ling Yunfei smiled bitterly. Qin Feiyang looked at Zhao Shuang-er and then at Ling Yunfei. Ling Yunfei had been suppressed since he was young, which delayed his cultivation. Although Zhao Shuang-er didn't have such an experience, she was just a disciple of a little guy in Iron Ox Town, and her cultivation conditions were not much better. It seemed that the martial arts talent of the two was not much different. He looked at Luo Qingzhu again. She had been a proud daughter of heaven since she was young, and she had been doted on by thousands of people. Her starting point was not much higher than Ling Yunfei's, and her strength should be stronger than theirs. Zhao Shuang-er joked, Sister Qingzhu's cultivation realm, you'd better not know so as not to be shocked. So powerful? Stunned, Fatso asked curiously. Tell me about it. 2-star martial ancestor. Zhao Shuang-er said. Suck. Other than Qin Feiyang, everyone sucked in a cold breath. They guessed that Luo Qingzhu's cultivation was definitely not low. After all, her status was there. But who would have thought that he would be so ridiculously strong? Zhang Haoyan, did you suffer a blow? Zhao Shuang-er giggled. It's all right. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. His heart was not that weak. Furthermore, if it weren't for the fact that he had wasted too much time copying the Huan formula, his current cultivation might have already caught up with Fengling Air. The few of them chatted until midnight before leaving the Flying Phoenix Pavilion. In the following 8 days, Qin Feiyang completely let go of his worries. Sometimes he would go out with Fengling Air to relax, and sometimes he would go shopping with Luo Qingzhu and Zhao Shuang-er. Don't say it. After a few days he felt more relaxed than ever. On the night before the finals, Qin Feiyang came to the law enforcement hall alone. What's the matter? In the lounge, Elder Wan sat by the tea table and looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. Qin Feiyang said, I want to see the hall master. See the hall master? Elder Wan was stunned and asked doubtfully, why do you want to see him? Qin Feiyang said truthfully, I want to use the hall master's power to open the door of potential. Elder Wan's face twitched and said disdainfully, kid, don't daydream. Go back and cultivate. Elder, I'm not joking. Qin Feiyang was a little helpless. Indeed, the door of potential was difficult to open, but there was no need to be so disdainful. Elder Wan was completely frozen. After a long time he came back to his senses. He got up and walked in front of Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Haoyan, this old man knows that your martial arts talent is not worse than your alchemy talent, but this kind of unrealistic thing, it's better not to delude yourself, okay? Qin Feiyang had a wry smile on his face. He really wanted to tear off his clothes and let Elder Wan see the potential mark on his chest. However, he couldn't help but have this impulse. He smiled faintly and said, Elder, it's because of this that I have to pursue higher things, so that I won't let down the talent that God has given me. Why are you so stubborn? I'm doing this for your own good. Can't you just listen to me? Elder Wan was a little angry. Qin Feiyang said, if I don't do it now, I will definitely regret it in the future. But this is unrealistic, do you understand? Elder Wan blew his beard and glared at him, extremely angry. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, where there is a will, there is a way. If you don't try, who knows what will happen in the end. Elder, this junior doesn't want to leave any regrets, please help me. Elder Wan was physically and mentally exhausted. He could be considered to have seen countless people, but this was the first time he had met such a stubborn kid. Follow me. Looking at Qin Feiyang helplessly, Elder Wan turned around and walked out. Qin Feiyang was overjoyed and quickly followed. If it was in the imperial capital, there would be no need to go through so much trouble. Because in the imperial capital, there was a place specially set up to open the door to potential. As long as one met the conditions, they could enter and give it a try. However, there were very few people who could successfully open it. Not to mention someone like him who wanted to break through the limit of this realm every time he reached a new realm. So, he could only go to the palace master for help. The palace master of the martial imperial palace was at least an 8-star war emperor. If he fully released his pressure, it would be enough to give him a strong sense of oppression. Of course, Elder Wan and Elder Ji could do it too. However, Qin Feiyong wanted to be safer. A moment later, Elder Wan led Qin Feiyong to a courtyard. All around, the scenery of the mountains and rivers was pleasant. This was the most secluded corner of the martial imperial palace. It was also the forbidden area of the martial imperial palace. Other than Elder Wan and Elder Ji, no one dared to step in. Elder Wan said loudly, "Palace Master, Zhang Haotian wants to see you. Bring him in." Not long later, a calm voice rang out from the pavilion within the courtyard. When the two of them entered the living room of the pavilion, they saw the martial imperial palace master sitting in front of the tea table with a faint smile on his face. "Greetings, Palace Master." Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and bowed. "What's the matter?" The martial imperial palace master asked doubtfully. "It's like this," Elder One simply explained. "Open the door of potential?" The martial imperial palace master was extremely surprised. Qin Feiyong was also quite nervous. Boom! All of a sudden, a monstrous pressure roared out from the martial imperial palace master's body. Qin Feiyong immediately felt that the surrounding space seemed to be frozen. He couldn't even move his feet. Even the blood in his body stopped flowing. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. Gradually, he began to feel suffocated. The veins and blood vessels all over his body were exposed from under his skin. His facial features were almost distorted, making him look somewhat sinister. Fortunately, at this moment the martial imperial palace master retracted his pressure. Qin Feiyong directly laid on the ground, gasping for breath. On his forehead, there were bean-sized beads of sweat dripping onto the ground. His face was also as pale as paper. The martial imperial palace master said, "How do you feel my pressure?" "Who?" Qin Feiyong let out a long breath, stood up, looked at him and nodded. "Very strong." One had to know. He was only a 9-star martial master right now. How could he withstand the pressure of an 8-star war emperor? The martial imperial palace master shook his head and said, "Although my pressure is very strong, it is still unable to help you break through the warrior's extreme realm. In the end, it is very likely that you will die under my pressure." Elder One nodded and said, "That's right. If this method worked, all the disciples of our martial imperial palace would have already opened the door of potential. So you should give up." No one understood these principles better than Qin Feiyong, because in the past he had tried countless times in the imperial capital, but he had failed every time. But now he was full of confidence. Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and said, "Palace Master, I want to try my best." The martial imperial palace master was stunned. Originally, he thought that after explaining the pros and cons this kid would give up. He didn't expect that he would insist on doing so. "Old One, you were right. This kid has a stubborn temper." He looked at Elder Wan and said helplessly. Elder Wan smiled bitterly. The martial imperial palace master looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "All right, since you won't cry until you enter the coffin, I will fulfill your wish. Are you ready?" Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, "Not now, but tomorrow at the first prince's wedding ceremony." "What? You want to do this at the first prince's wedding ceremony?" The two of them were dumbfounded. Wasn't this clearly trying to steal the first prince's limelight? What the hell was this little bastard thinking in his head? "Kid, you better think carefully. It would be best if you succeed, because you will create a miracle and your name will spread throughout the world. But if you fail, not only will you offend the royal family, you will also become the laughingstock of the world." Elder Wan tried his best to persuade him. "I've thought it through." Qin Feiyong clenched his fists and said word by word with determination in his eyes. The two of them looked at each other, and the helplessness in their hearts couldn't be described with words. The martial imperial palace master said, "All right, I'll go crazy with you this time. I hope you can really do it. Also, don't forget your promise with Elder Ji." "Promise?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. "I knew you were going to act shamelessly." Elder One stared at him and snorted. "Let me remind you. You said that as long as we invite you to join the martial imperial palace tomorrow, you will nod your head and agree." Qin Feiyong slapped his head and nodded. "That is indeed the case. Please don't worry, I will not go back on my words. The two of them laughed. Because they couldn't think of a reason not to invite him. Qin Feiyong thanked him and turned around to leave. Back at the soothing lake. He stood by the lakeside and looked at the calm surface of the lake. His eyes gradually became sharp. Fatso and Lu Hong walked to his side. Fatso smiled, "Boss, tomorrow is the day of the showdown. Are you ready? But even if you fail and live a life of running for your life, we will continue to follow you." "Thank you." Qin Feiyong looked at the two of them with a gentle gaze. Fatso said unhappily, "Why are you thanking us? Aren't you being too polite?" Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. "Your main task tomorrow is to watch Lin Chang. Before I say anything, don't let him come out and cause trouble." "No problem." The two of them nodded. At the same time, Wolf King in the ancient castle became excited. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."